We can all hear you.
Okay.
Can all hear you.
Yeah, just do your stuff for a little bit.
I just managed to do it on the private the DJ page. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I got you. I'll do it.
Just don't say anything that'll get you canceled while you think.
I'll stop right now.
I guess we're live, guys.
Hey,
There we are.
Live? What happened to our jingle?
Yeah, what's going on?
Sorry, we had a rush.
Technical issues.
Technical issue.
Can you sing it, David?
What's that?
Can you sing it?
Can I see it?
DJs. Beers.
I should get a little.
Yeah, sound effect.
That was all me too. I recorded myself. No, it was a can. You opened a can on the mic and yeah,
Sweet.
that was all right.
Cheers, everyone. Welcome to episode number 21 of DJs and Beers.
Cheers.
Hi, everyone.
Why are you not drinking, Matt?
I need to go and get a beer. I was interrupted by my daughter, as you can see. So.
Oh, how do you like the all day one, Ali?
It's I mean it's not, it's a little bitter, but
It's light. It's like
yeah.
yeah. I mean, technically, you're supposed to be able to drink it all day.
It's got half the amount of alcohol that from I can't remember what I was drinking last week, but half the amount of alcohol what that was.
Yeah.
Samuel Smith, maybe? Was that what it was?
Samuel Smith.
No, it had like 8% something, over 8% alcohol.
Yeah,
which was
that's
nuts.
pretty strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a light one today too. Scrimshaw. It's just a regular. I don't even know what you call this one.
Is that like a morning beer?
It's just it says literally just water, barley, hops, and yeast. That's it. It's like I don't even know if it's a lager or Pilsner style. So yeah, easy drinking. From
All right, David, Pilsner style. What is the difference, Pilsner style? I mean, we're DJs and Beers. We need to discuss these things.
Yeah.
Pilsner style versus lager style.
They're the same, but Pilsner is where it's made.
Oh, really?
Which is in Germany. I forgot the I don't know what you call it. I wouldn't say
It's
city.
on the lighter, it's like lighter beer, right?
Yeah, so lagers and pilsners they're cold storage beers. So like ales, they're fermented in warmer temperatures, whereas these are in colder temperatures. Like so, lager literally means like to put away.
Yeah, that's why ales have the darker color because they're fermented in warmer.
Well, a lager.
Sorry, I mean ales.
Ales,
Yeah. No, the word lager in German is essentially storage.
Storage, yeah.
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 Ah.
But considering the name of our show, we should really know these things by heart.
You would think I mean, this is something I've kind of learned recently because I just never think about it, you know. So I
David,
be wrong. I could be wrong.
Do you understand the process of making beer? Like, could you explain it? Not now. I mean, in general, like.
In general, yeah, because I've done it a few times with my friend in his house. Like, it's very small scale, obviously, but it's just like there's only like 4 or 5 steps. That's it. It's not a whole lot, but it's the.
Have you ever thought about like making it yourself, like making your own moonshine beer?
Yeah, man. I've that's funny was Mo was actually talking me into like, dude, why don't you just buy a brew kit and make some beer at home? I was like, I don't know. I could.
That's the next step, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think eventually I will. Probably in the next couple months. I might as well. I have a garage I can do it in, you know.
There you go.
Yeah,
I mean, we have bread, we have bread, we have cheesecake, we need beers.
I'll do a special DJs and Beers, like, I don't know, IPA or something.
I'm actually drinking a Frankfurt Pale Ale. It's brewed here in Frankfurt and it's a pale ale.
Nice.
And it's the first time I tasted it. It's really good.
Someone the other day on, I can't remember if it was Instagram or Twitter or whatever, they suggested that we do a virtual beer festival on DJs and Beers, which is not a bad idea. We can have 100 people on here.
There's breweries doing that right now. They're doing like virtual beer festivals where you sign up and you buy a ticket and they'll mail you a box of beer.
Wow.
You can like sit there and drink with everybody on the, I don't know if it's on a Zoom chat or something.
By the way,
a lot of people watching. Like there's
just like
we could combine that because my idea from last week to do a 10, 12-hour DJs and Beers show actually caught some traction. Matt, you were missing last week. What happened to you?
I was visiting my family in the French Alps, and my mother came out. She came from the UK, so I hadn't seen her since January. And that was nice. I mean, it's good to get away. It's pretty strange in France. I mean, you have to wear a mask in the street where we were, and it's busy. I mean, where they are in Morzine, there's a lot of mountain bikers. There's a lot of tourists. But mostly French, and because of the quarantine thing in the UK, which took effect from Saturday, it meant that everyone was rushing back to the UK to beat the quarantine. So, but it was good. It was really nice. Lots of swimming, mountain biking, that kind of stuff.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's great to get away from Berlin and great to get away from the city. And thing is, I mean, I'm not working. So, we were supposed to go there for the actual tickets we bought for the flights were for Chamonix for the Unlimited Festival. So we rebooked. So, and I guess that's not going to happen again. We'll see.
And you also had your first gig, right?
I did a little show for a friend of my sister's. I mean, it was supposed to be an outdoor show, but the weather was super bad, and it was for a son of a guy who runs one of the most amazing restaurants there in near Morzine, and so it was a very small affair in the end. It was maybe, I don't know, 70, 80 people.
Shame on you.
Shame on you.
Shame.
Yeah. But
how do you feel about that?
No, it was good. It was good to play. I mean, it was good to play. I mean, it was fine. And I've got offers to play in Berlin, like this club, this private space called Generator, which is part of this hotel. Also, this other thing. There's a few other things happening, but I mean, I guess if it's safe, then why not? Chris has done it.
Dude, there is no safe gigs. You know that.
Nope.
Has there ever been a safe gig? I mean, this is a longer topic we should dive into, but maybe we should get our guest on board for that. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Sure.
We have this amazing guest tonight, who I would say it sounds cliche, but cliches have to come from somewhere. But he's the DJ's DJ, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
I mean, I've rarely met a DJ who you could wake up at 3 o'clock at night and tell him, like, play an old school rave set, 3 hours now, and he would do it. Or play a funky house set in a 2 hour long funky house set now, and he could do it. And he could name you every track. He could name you basically the year it was produced. He's a walking encyclopedia, musically speaking. Encyclopedia.
I have a funny little story. I don't know if he'll remember or not, but I'll bring it up at a party that I threw in Berlin at Griesmühle, and I had him play, and the power went out the sound went out, and when it came back on, he had queued up this acapella. I don't know what it was, but it had to do with this power or the sound going out. And I was like, how the hell did he pull that out? Like, what the hell? He's ready. I don't know if he'll remember that, but I'll ask him.
Let's ask him.
Yeah.
All right. Benny Rodrigues.
Yeah.
Camera on.
There he is.
Hey, Benny.
Hey guys, hello.
Hey, Benny, great to see you.
Hey man, thanks for having me, and thanks for the introduction, man. That's too much honor. Too much honor, but thank you.
Benny is sitting in his new comfortable chair. We're happy that you're comfortable. Finally, after all these years of making the bombest ass techno, sitting in like a not so comfortable chair.
A crappy chair, yes. I'm super.
So now
super
your music's gonna go downhill. Now that you're comfortable, the music is just.
Actually, this is the first week that I've been really uninspired. You know, maybe because I've been enjoying the chair too much, but I've been really uninspired. So I don't know if it has something to do with this chair, but either way, I'm really, really happy with my new chair. It's actually my first proper studio chair. You know, usually I just sit on a regular dining table chair or just a regular chair, and it always kind of worked. But now I'm realizing, like, I really, you know, done myself, you know, I haven't done myself any favors over the years, you know, like I'm feeling like it's almost like I'm a professional now, you know. Almost.
It is such an important investment that we all somehow kind of, like, a lot of people miss out on. I mean, I remember when I bought this chair, which was kind of expensive, but in a way, what was it, 800 euros? And you're thinking like, oh, buy a chair for 800 euros, this is crazy. But when you think about it, you sit on this for like 10, 15 years, you know?
Yeah.
And it needs to be comfortable and it needs to be good, and it makes all the difference.
It's crazy. Like Carl Gregg, he tweeted a couple of weeks ago, he was tweeting about like the biggest investment you can do as a producer is the chair and the speakers. And it's funny because I use quite really crappy speakers because I usually work on headphones, and I never had a chair. So I kind of I saw this picture on Plex on his Twitter page. He had his chair, and I just looked really great. And I asked him about it, and he told me like, well, it's actually a gaming chair. It's not necessarily a DJ or a producer chair. So it's made for people who are gaming, who are sitting all day. So it made quite a lot of sense. So I bought it, and I'm really like, you know, I'm always lying or like in a lazy mode, but now I'm properly sitting all day long, and it's proper.
Benny, does it have a subwoofer built into it or no?
Sorry?
Does it have a subwoofer built in?
I'm gonna get the pack sub later on as well. Like I just got a bench, like a lying where you put your feet on as well, so you can lie down. So I figured like if I'm gonna go for the proper chair, I'm gonna go all the way. So I have like an extra accessory where I can lie down fully, and it's like really, I don't need to go to bed anymore. You know, I'm settled, so I'm good. Yeah.
Well, what are you drinking? Or are you?
Okay. Well, actually, I don't drink alcohol. I never done. But out of respect for the show, I want to represent my country as well, of course, Holland. So I brought, you know, Holland's flagship beer, just to show it to you and have it as a sign of respect. So, cheers. Heineken. It's nothing original, but you know, it's for the moment.
They make a non-alcoholic version.
Yeah, but I don't actually. I only drink water. These days, I only drink water. That's basically.
I remember you were drinking like at least 2 liters of Coca-Cola every day, and my idea was to call the show this week DJs and Coke, but I thought it was maybe misunderstanding. People, it could be misinterpreted. So you switched to water. You left the Coca-Cola behind.
Yeah, I figured I like, you know, I was drinking Coca-Cola. I never drank alcohol, but I was always drinking a lot of sugar drinks like Coca-Cola, Sprite, apple juice. And at a certain point, I kind of made a switch. Like I stopped eating meat as well, like 2 years ago. Inspired by you, by the way, vegan Chris. You know, I remember I spent a couple of days at your place, and you know, you went all vegan, and it was the first time I had a vegan meal. And then I changed. My girlfriend switched to vegan after I told her about, because she was always a little bit about, you know, like she's very animal friendly. Like, you know, she's a really big lover of animals and stuff. So she figured like, you know, like when I came from your house and I told her like, hey, you know, there are a lot of possibilities actually, you know, you don't really have to restrict yourself to certain, you know, you just have to make some efforts. So she changed into a strictly vegan diet, like for 5 years now. And I stopped eating meat. I still eat fish. But 2 years ago, I stopped eating meat. And then I also made the switch, like, I'm just going to drink water from now on. And, you know, try to live a little bit more, you know, a little bit more healthy and a little bit more conscious. So no alcohol for me, but yeah, it's a sign of respect.
I'm happy I could inspire you. I'm miserably failing on inspiring my co-hosts here.
Oh, really?
Benny, what is it like being in you know, a festival environment or club environment, staying for a while, whatever, surrounded by drunk and high people, like being sober? Like in the middle of all that, what is that like, and how did you get over that hurdle of being able to tolerate stupid drunk and high people, of which I'm guilty. You know?
No, you know, it's a good question because actually, you know, I never use drugs. I never smoked a cigarette. I don't drink alcohol, so for me, it's quite weird, you know, to step into nightlife and kind of really be super fresh and observing everything. And yeah, it's interesting, you know, like I think nightlife, you know, it's a circus, you know, it's a circus freaks in a good way. And you know, I kind of prepare myself, you know, when I come somewhere to a party or I'm DJing myself. I come into into the situation with an approach like, you know, don't worry too much, you know, and people gonna be drunk, people's gonna be drugged up or whatever. They're gonna talk a lot of bullshit, but I have this kind of natural filter, you know, like you kind of, you know, especially in nightlife when the music is hard. I have this way of thinking that people, especially in clubs when they're talking to you, some people they're mostly they mostly like to hear themselves talk anyway. So when you're just nodding, you know, like yeah, or you know you're just kind of confirming this conversation, you know, and they're basically like, it sounds maybe a bit cynical, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but sometimes I have this feeling that people, especially in loud clubs, they just want to hear themselves talk, or they're talking towards themselves, and they're using me as the transformer, you know. So, and I feel good, you know, being that. So I'll just sit and listen and you know, and actually, to be honest, you know, like I come prepared, and you know, I know. Also, I have a certain ADHD, like a certain energy level. My energy level is quite high, especially when I go to clubs and I hear loud music and I'm feeling really good. Like, you know, the vibe is good. And I feel really like, you know, I feel super energetic, and I you know, I straight get into the party mode, and I really don't need drugs or alcohol to get in the same vibe as a lot of people. You know, like I can get there without being high or drunk or whatever. You know, but yeah, the filter, you know, the bullshit filter is always on with me. You know, but in a respectable way. You know, I would never, you know, because it's sometimes it's kind of how do you say, awkward when a lot of people are drunk or you know, they're on drugs and you're not, and you're in a group with them, and they might feel like awkward about, you know, me not being part of the whole thing. And but with my energy, I kind of, you know, show them like, you know, I'm definitely not the one to judge, and even better, like I can get there with my, you know, with my own level as well, you know, like in that zone. Or you know, it's not really, I'm not really like serious like that, like, oh shit, oh, just things happen, not at all. But yeah, but you know, I always, when people tell me things, especially when they promise me things, you know, hey, I will send you an email, or yeah, let's do this collaboration, or let's do this, or oh man, that's amazing, let's do it. You know, I always have my cynical bullshit filter on, like, yeah, sure. You know, and then when the next day we'll see what happens. So yeah, I'm quite used to it, and I'm okay with it. But it's, you know, you have to enter this whole scene with a, you know, you have to know it's a circus. You know, we are part of a certain circus, you know, with funny people, crazy people, weird people, you know, freaks, everything mixed up. So, you know, and it's fun, you know, it's part of the fun. And but I'm living it in my way, you know, with respect towards the others. But yeah, but I don't. Yeah, but it's interesting, to say the least.
But you know what? I have a question though, because I know like in festival season you could play like 8 or 10 gigs in a weekend, and I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, how the hell does he do that if he's sober?
Because I don't drink. Probably, maybe now you have the answer, I guess.
Just not drinking. I know, but it's just so crazy. I've done like, I think the most I've ever done is like 3 gigs, and that like destroyed me. But I do drink. But like you do like 3 times that. It's, man, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because a lot of people, you know, obviously now we're not DJing, but a lot of people always been asking me, like, you know, how do you keep up with all the gigs and with everything, and especially like international DJ friends. And I will always tell them, because it's the truth. You know, I'm DJing mainly in Holland. You know, this is my home country, and my like 90% of my DJ gigs are in Holland. I chose to do it this way, and I always tell my DJ friends, especially who are DJing, you know, maybe 3 times a weekend around the world or around Europe. But I always tell them, like, honestly, I could maybe play 5 gigs or 10 gigs, let's say, in a weekend in Holland, and still feel 10 times less tired than you, for example, if you're DJing around, you know, with 3 flights, 3 different hotels, 3 different conversations with promoters, the whole trip to the gig, you know, the whole preparation, and for me, I'm basically, you know, I get my records or I grab my music together. I go into the car, you know, I sit in the back, and I'll be driven to my gig. You know, I get out, I play my music, you know, I hang out, and then I go somewhere else, I play and then in the end, I go back to my own bed. So, you know, that's a huge, it's already on a psychological level, it's a huge advantage, you know, knowing that you're going to stay in your own bed, your own comfortable bed. And and also, you know, Holland is a small country. So for people, because I remember when I met Chris, he said the same thing, like, how is it even possible to play so many gigs in Holland? Well, Holland is relatively small. I mean, it's not like the States, you know, where you have to fly maybe 5 hours from one city to another. Like the furthest, the biggest distance in Holland from point A to B is, I guess, 2 hours max. But basically everything, you know, from the north to the south, it's 2 hours or maybe 2.5 hours. But generally, like all the parties in Holland, like, you know, either it's Rotterdam or Amsterdam or Utrecht or the bigger or the smaller cities, it's usually like the travel time is just 1 hour average. So it is possible, you know, for me, it's relatively more easy to play maybe over here, a warm-up set, and then go to the party B to play there and, you know, mix it up a little bit. And, you know, so logistically, that's much easier because it's smaller, but also psychologically, that it's even the biggest difference because, as I said, you know, it's really, really, like, sometimes I play like international gigs. Let's say if I go to Berlin or I go to Ibiza or I go to London or to, even if it's just a 1 hour flight, I'll be honest, like, as soon as I take the flight and I arrive and I get at the hotel, I already feel this tension, you know, like you've been up in the air, even if it's just for 1 hour. So imagine you guys coming from overseas, you know, and I get into the hotel and I already feel like, I feel way more tired than playing maybe even 100 gigs in one weekend in Holland. So, you know, so when people tell me about this, you know, I always tell, like, listen, it's not even, you know, it's a totally different context. And, you know, it's really, I think it's much more harder to take flights and always surround yourself in a total new experience where you're not only playing music, but you're actually, you know, you're like going to the whole, you know, you're traveling to get there, you're meeting a new promoter, you're meeting new people, you know, it's much more intense. You know, I'm not saying if it's worse or better, but it's definitely much more intense than what I'm doing. So I guess that's my answer. You know, it's much easier on a psychological and a logistically level.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't take into account, especially like artists that are coming up and want to tour a lot and stuff, and just the traveling alone, how much the toll it takes on your body. And just like how you explain it, it's just like, I can just drive around in the Netherlands and play 5 gigs and be fine. And you can take a flight, but, you know, it's a 1 hour flight, but you have to add in the time to get to the airport. In the airport, it's like a 3 or 4 hour day.
And there's a lot of stress. And there's a lot of like little stress moments, you know, are you getting at the airport in time? Or is your luggage going to fit? If you're going to bring records, am I going to lose my It's like I kind of have a how do you say, high sensitivity thing going on. Like, I'm always conscious about things happening. So for me, like, little stress moments add up even more within my consciousness. So, you know, when I have an international gig, I already feel, I'm always like tense, you know, like, you know, if everything will go all right, you know, at the airport, you know, is there a driver waiting? All these little things, you know, like a lot of people call it first world problems. But, you know, if you're putting it in our context, you know, as a, you know, DJ and DJs, the energy that comes with it, things that adds up. And in the end, it's, you know, like a lot of colleagues always saying, like, you know, DJing is for free. And the traveling, you know, that's the real work. That's what we're getting paid for.
You get paid to travel.
So in a way, I'm just DJing for free all the way because I don't travel that much.
Andy, this is a fascinating perspective because not many DJs share that. Did you have this realization early on in your career that you didn't want to travel, or you started to do some international travel and then realized you can't, you don't want to deal with all that stress? And then you kind of retreated back to playing mainly in Holland.
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. Like when I started like DJing, I've always had this idea, like my main motto for my own, the way to approach things was to try to be as independent as possible within my DJing, within how I handle, or not, like how I deal with people. So I always wanted, I do my own bookings. Like I don't have a booker, I don't have a manager, I never had. And for me, this was a kind of a essential thing as part of being as independent as possible, because I didn't want to be part of agency A or agency B, or and they're against them, and they don't want to play the whole politic game. So for me, I figured like, okay, I want to do my own bookings. I want to stay really close to the people I work with, and then when I started like playing more and DJing more, I kind of built a really nice thing here in Holland. Like quite early on, I was really lucky and blessed to have a really good career going on here, and and it just kept going and going. And at some point, I kind of realized like I'm doing really well here in Holland. And then people were always asking me, over the years, like, yeah, okay, you're doing really well here, but when are you going really proper internationally, like a lot of other DJs? Like I came up with a lot of Dutch DJs who I also go, fly, like Joris Voorn, or every like pretty much all the Dutch DJs. We came up around the same time, and then everybody's going internationally. And so people were always asking me like, when are you going? When are you going abroad? And I figured like, I'm really comfortable with my career over here. And I also, as I said before, I'm very conscious about things. I try to be really, I try to really analyze a lot of stuff. And I kind of realized like, I'm so blessed with the career that I have here in Holland, that I figured like, if I want to go international, if I want to do international gigs, it should be the gigs that I feel like are like the cherry on the pie, like the or the cherry on top, like the really, I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of parties or a lot of things that I probably won't know how they are, but like there are certain things that I know, like if this club comes to me, I definitely want to do it, or this club but like to be honest, like my main concern or my main focus has always been Holland, mainly because I've just been blessed to have a really good career going on here. And then at some point when I kind of I kept going like this, and then certain DJs who were flying all over, like certain Dutch DJs, when we were having a conversation, and they were actually like, wow, you know what, it wasn't really it was quite a smart decision to stay over here, because we're flying all over the world, and it's a lot more tiring, and it's a lot more energy, etc. And it's not as bad as as I maybe might have thought before. So. Yeah. But for me personally, yeah, it's a form of gratitude to my country, who offered me like a really nice thing from the get-go, actually, and also like my DJ, like my DJ style is pretty broad, like from house, deep house, techno, everything in between. And I also like, I felt like if I want to go in, because in Holland I'm known for DJ who's very versatile, but internationally it's quite a different story, of course, because there are much more people, much more clubs, and they don't know me as well as people in Holland might have. So I figured like, and I was always like from the get-go, I was always focused on being a DJ. Being a producer was never really, I was actually not a producer up until maybe 2007, but I was already DJing for 7 years, like in Holland, like on a really good level. So, like I didn't come up DJing because of a production or whatever. So, and then as, and then as time flew by, I figured like maybe, if I want to go internationally, especially with my broad style that I have, I kind of have to make sure that I end up at the right parties with people who kind of know what to expect from me, or there should be a certain reference. I mean, the best part about DJing and about sharing music, of course, is everything is open, the format is open, and you should surprise people. But I came to learn that especially with social media and everything coming up, I kind of realized like people. People are they really like to know what's this person all about, and they were, to a certain extent, they want to know, they want to have a kind of a picture. And I realized, like, for me, as broad as I am as a DJ, it probably wouldn't make a lot of sense to invest in internationally without having a lot of productions first. And then as soon as the first productions came out, like around 2007, and then in between 2007 and 2012, I had productions on like a lot of different labels, but there were also a lot of different sounds. Like I did something for Chris, but I also did something on Boys Noise, and I did something on Smallville, which is like a totally different label. Like Boys Noise is very noisy and kind of ravey. So there was so much difference in my productions that I as soon as I got like really nice opportunities to play outside of Holland, I always figured I didn't really feel comfortable because people never really knew what to expect of me.
Benny,
So,
can I just ask you a quick question? So
yeah, sure.
I just want to ask you, like, could you give us an overview of how you say pre-lockdown? How's the club scene in Holland compared with when you first started? Like, what's the difference? Because I know it's now become predominantly festival driven, right? This country It has more festivals than anyone else, but I mean, when you start, I mean, what was the difference? And I mean, obviously you were still playing last year as much as maybe when you started, or has it changed?
No, it's been pretty constant over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So and the club scene in Holland pre-COVID was still pretty vibrant. I mean, I only play it. I don't play everywhere, but I mean.
Well, it's the same as in, like, it's like it's kind of the same story internationally in like all the cities, but I mean Holland, up until like the 90s, up until 2000 and let's say 2009, 2010, 11, it was very club driven, and there were a lot of festivals already, like in comparison to worldwide. Maybe UK, would have a lot of festivals as well, but Holland already had kind of a couple of staple festivals. But like from 2010 onwards, like it just exploded, and a lot of festivals came, and then a lot of, but it went in conjunction with each other, like festivals and clubs. And up until 2016, when actually the whole electronic music boom kind of it's exploded, like all of a sudden there were like so many festivals that, from my point of view, I saw it happen that clubs were having a difficult time. First of all, to get the DJs, to get the DJs play in clubs, because festivals were offering much more money, especially for international DJs, so they have more exclusivity deals. So, and I used to work for a club as well in Rotterdam. I used to do the bookings and help them out with certain things. So I saw it from behind the scenes as well. Like I was really noticing, like I was really feeling this change, this way of thinking from a lot of DJs or managers. Like, why would you play a club, a club for 500 people, or without, when I can make much more money playing a festival. Yeah. And I'm speaking in general, because personally for me, I'm a club DJ at heart, but like in Holland, but yeah, so in Holland, at some point, like the festivals just basically took things over, and there were still a lot of clubs around, but yeah, as years grew by, clubs went, like you could sense that clubs couldn't really compete against festivals anymore, especially in Holland, especially Rotterdam, Amsterdam, having so many festivals, all striving for a lot of the same artists. So clubs kind of had to change their way of programming things.
And what was your favorite club when you started out? What was the club?
Sorry?
What was your favorite club when you started out? What was the?
Yeah, well, definitely the two clubs where I started, actually, which is Nighttown in Rotterdam. Yeah, it's a club. Yeah, it went on from early 90s till I think 2004, and it's a club where I played my first gigs at. and it's a club where pretty much it's a club where I grew up as a kid. You know, I think Chris has played there. Chris in Nighttown, Rotterdam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in the basement. Yeah. And that's the club where I grew up, and you know, where I discovered the music for the first time, and you know, like I owe everything to Nighttown. It's basically where I grew up and just experienced.
Benny, Nighttown didn't it have a different name at some point?
Later
or
on,
am I mixing that up?
No, later on it became Watt. Watt. W-A-T-T.
Exactly, because I remember we've probably met around 2006, I believe, or 2005.
Do you remember
2005-ish. No.
It was on the train station when you and Josh came from Amsterdam. Josh Wink.
Oh yes.
The day before you played in the city, and I came to pick up Josh.
It just came back.
Yeah,
and I knew of you
remembers
before.
because he was sober and you weren't.
Probably.
No. It was on the train station. I was with Josh, and Josh knew you before because you picked up Josh or something like this.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about Josh Wink here. I remember because Benny, I was one of the people who asked you, was like, why don't you play more international? Why don't you? You're such an amazing DJ. You would have a worldwide career. And for me, back in the days, it was completely not understandable. Like, why don't you want to go out to share your music in the whole world? What is stopping you? And you were telling me exactly what you were telling me now.
Yeah. It's funny because it was when we met, and like 1 hour later, you were really like asking me these questions, and I was telling, but I saw the surprise in your eye. You were like really like, I don't want to, you know, like.
I couldn't process the thinking like, wait a minute. But obviously in hindsight, it's very understandable. And I think you're making the absolutely right decisions from
I don't
your
know
standpoint.
if it's right or wrong, but it's my decision, you know, and I'm happy.
Oh, you seem to be very happy. And that is what I think is the right decision. So the more honored I feel that you actually agreed to play for my night on Ibiza in 2006 and 2007.
Honor was all mine. Thank you.
Because I asked Benny to become a resident DJ at my spin club party.
Yeah, and I was actually quite surprised. Like, why are you? Nobody knows me.
Oh, because I love your music.
Thank you. I was surprised because you asked me like after we had a conversation, and then we met each other, and then you came to Rotterdam with Jochem to the studio, and we would always meet. And then a year later, you asked me to be a resident in Ibiza, and actually in the first I was like, but I don't understand, you know, like I'm DJing in Holland, nobody knows me, and it doesn't really make sense. Why so? And you were also like, come on, you know, but it was a big honor, and it was actually one of the first like proper international thing that I was doing without even people knowing me, but you know, like that, you know, that gave me a smell of what's going on out there. But
but you know, I always felt like that Holland is, if you consider the amount of people who live there and the size of the country, is probably the biggest party country in the world.
Probably. I think so too.
Like in relation between parties and people. Why do you think that is?
Yes, that's interesting question. I think probably I mean, Holland has always you know, like dance music has always been represented on well, I mean, especially the last years, but it's like let's say in the UK, like you have a really proper dance radio culture, you know, pirate radio and everything. And in Holland, it wasn't like UK, but I think in Holland basically like Dutch people are very organized. That's one thing for sure, you know. That's why there's a lot of festivals, a lot of clubs going well. Like a lot of DJs like to play in Holland. And so Dutch people in general are very organized, especially if I compare it to certain international parts where I've been. And I was like, whoa, you know, then this is supposed to be a, you know, like a big festival. But so, and I guess when the dance music boom came into Holland, like, especially, you know, starting with EDM, when EDM exploded, it was actually like, you know, a Dutch sound. You know, it started with Chucky and Afrojack and Hardwell, and they've kind of like, you know, like they kind of inspired David Guetta you know, to work with Black Eyed Peas and etc. etc. And then this whole thing exploded, and then the term EDM became kind of like what was already known in Holland as Dutch house, which, you know, and so I think after this happened in 2010, you know, because a lot of and before that was also with trends, with Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, Ferry Corsten, you know, so there were always like Dutch ambassadors, you know, for like music that was really well known over the world. And so in the first generation of this were the trance DJs, and the second generation was the EDM DJs. And like the techno DJs is always like, you know, they're always going in the underground and they're doing their thing. But I guess because of those, you know, the trance thing going on and the EDM thing 10 years later kind of gave Holland a really, you know, they kind of represented Holland. And also in Holland, you know, the music became super popular because, you know, in combination with the good organization skills, I think, you know, a lot of people saw opportunities to throw parties here. And in general, you know, there's a culture here. I mean, you know, we're a very liberal country, you know, like, you know, the drugs, you know, the kind of a liberal drugs, I wouldn't say, how do you say, a drugs policy, you know, especially when it comes to soft drugs and everything. So, you know, if you put that in correlation to the music and everything, you know, it's always been quite, I think this all goes quite hand in hand with each other. And I think, but especially after 2010, when the EDM explosion came, I think a lot of Dutch people, you know, became, you know, were like, okay, you know, this is kind of like, we're part of this and we're good at doing these events and we were always doing these things, but now we're going to do it even bigger or better. And a lot of new people came, and like the new generation kind of already grew up with the whole dance culture in Holland being so big. Because the dance culture in Holland, I think it exploded really worldwide and big time with festivals. It's only 10 years ago. So I think like the generation that came up in 2010, 12, 14, for them, it's like they already grew up with Holland being like a really huge festival.
But Benny, doesn't it go, this goes way deeper than that, goes way back to like, I mean, like Jos van Boren, what's his name, the guy who does these parties at like Paradiso, you know, like
going back Ed van Veen.
Yeah. So, I mean, I used to play for him. I mean, but I mean, I think Dutch, the rave culture, and it's the geographically where you are in Europe as well. Of course, a lot of people could travel from Belgium or from Germany, and so I think people always travelled. I mean, I think that was one of the things from us Brits growing up in the UK. We grew up in an island. Yeah, we didn't have that accessibility to just go out on a night in a car and drive from Germany into Holland. And I think the rave culture was, even in the late 80s, was huge.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. I mean, from the start, like, I mean, Holland was one of the first that embraced Detroit techno. You know, like we had Steve Rockmott, Speedy J, Orlando Vorn, Quasar, Eddie de Klerk, you know, Vlammen and Abraxas, you know, you know, all these old school DJs that kind of, the Roxy, you know, one of the first in Holland that, you know, brought over the DJs from Detroit, and like the culture, but, you know, but you know, yeah, the Roxy, the IT in Amsterdam, Nighttown in Rotterdam, and all these clubs, you know, I mean, Holland had pretty much from, you know, late 80s, early 90s, there was already a healthy dance scene, but it was quite undergroundish, you know, it was like, for those who know, and it was already like proper clubs in Amsterdam, proper clubs in Rotterdam, and you know, you knew, everybody knew who the DJs were and who, you know, what was happening everywhere. But it was more for those who were interested to dive into Dutch dance culture. Yeah. But so for an outsider, it would be very difficult to know what's going on, because it was relatively underground. But in comparison to, let's say, 10 years ago, when you're growing up, you know, in 2010 or 2014, you're basically seeing Dutch DJs all over television, Dutch dance music all over.
But Ben, do you not? Sorry, I was going to say, do you not think though that you say that, but I mean, back in the 90s and especially in mainland Europe, I mean, you have like MTV, you had all of the, I mean, Kernkraft, you know, Zombie Nation. These were pop records. I mean, and like with Ali's success, you know, with Deep Dish, I think sometimes people forget how big dance music was in the 90s, you know?
Yeah.
And look at the parties that Richie played at, you know, like Universe in the UK. They were huge, you know.
It was big, but you know, it was big, but still underground big in a way.
Think so?
You know? Like, I mean, if you compare it to now, like, you know, I always make this comparison. Like, when I started as a DJ, it was in 1997, 1996. I was inspired by a radio show, a local radio show from Michel Dahai. Who was like, you know, he was playing this weird Detroit techno, Chicago, weird stuff, like also the London tech house stuff. And I didn't know anything about it. And obviously I grew up, you know, seeing you know, Robin S. Nightcrawlers on MTV and stuff, you know, and it always, you know, I just kept it in the back of my mind, like, oh, that's funny. And we called it mellow over here because, you know, you had Gabba and the mellow, you know, like Gabba was like the, you know, like the rave, the Dutch rave.
And there's no in between.
Yeah, so mellow was actually everything that was basically not gabber. People used to call it mellow. And so my idea of dance music in Holland or dance music in general was like, when I heard you know, all these Robin S. and whatever, all these songs on MTV, it was like, oh, that's mellow, it's nice. But you know, I didn't have any connection with it, like proper deeper connection. That became like years later when I discovered this radio station. Because my father used to go to parties all the time. He was like a proper club head, and I came to live with him. And he played this radio show, this really underground local radio show, and that's where I discovered my music for the first time, like the real stuff that I was like, what is this? And I was like, yeah, this is techno house, and my journey started from there. But the comparison I'm trying to make is like, for me, I discovered it because you know, because my father was already a club head and he knew where to go. You know, he would go to Roxy, Nighttown, whatever. So he already knew those places. And when I came to live with him, I discovered the music through him. But nowadays, if you're growing up now in Holland, especially, I mean, you know, like if you know, I never saw a DJ before I became one. You know, I never even wanted to be a DJ. You know, I was really, you know, I was really attracted to the music that I was hearing through radio speakers. And then I went to record shops and started buying records, but only because I wanted the records that were playing at the radio, and not because I saw a DJ, you know, going crazy. And I was like, oh man, this looks amazing, I want to do that. For me, it was different. And sorry, I'm really, I'm making it very long, but the conversation I'm trying to make is like, people nowadays, or especially for the last 15 years, you know, especially in Holland, you want to be a DJ because you see a DJ on television every day, you see it on social media, you see the crowd going wild. So for them, it triggers them like, oh, I see this, and oh, the music, oh, the energy, or whatever. But it's very visual, and it wasn't this visual in the 90s at all. You know, it was only known for those who knew. So of course it was big, but you know, now it's a huge difference, you know, in why you want to be part of this. You know, I think nowadays it's very, you know, you see things online, you see things, you know, everything is out there, and especially in Holland. So it makes you inspired in another way. Like, I want to be part of this. Where for me, I really had to look for, I didn't even look for it. It found me, but it was different, you know, it wasn't out there, you know. I mean, there was never a DJ on talk shows. Like Tiesto became a pop star, you know, he came on all those talk shows and all, you know, and all these Dutch DJs, you know, like it's like the DJs are, you know, they make the news pretty much, not the big commercial DJs. Yeah. They're always on the news, or they're always they get a lot of attention of the national press because, you know, they're an export product. So, and yeah, so for new generations, you know, this is what you see, and you already grew up with it. It's like, oh, this is the culture, you know. So it's much bigger than it was in the 90s, from my perspective at least. But yeah, if you're looking from the inside, of course it was big. I mean, but yeah, you have to look for it, and now it just finds you. I mean, dance music is, you know, it's just, yeah, it's part of everything. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, it's like you say, you know, DJs, beers, dance music, breakfast, dinner. It's normal, you know. And in the 90s and early 2000s, it was more music for the freaks or more music for the outsiders, you know. Like, you know, it was a different culture.
So Benny, do you think that during this lockdown, do you think people are still aspiring to be DJs?
Oh yeah.
Coming out of this?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I think so.
I see this in Berlin with there's so many young DJs on doing these streams, and I just think that, you know, we see it from another perspective because basically, you know, our industry has kind of stopped. But I just wonder whether, how, you know, how young people are sort of what they see.
Some DJs.
Huh?
Stop. This is not to some DJs, but
True.
that's a whole other topic.
Is that the pink elephant?
No, it's sorry. Go on.
No,
Yeah,
sorry.
Go on, Benny.
I was going to say, what's during this lockdown, what's been happening in Holland? Have you been approached to play any shows? Have there been any shows with limited capacity? What are your feelings? Because there's a lot of debate, and everyone has seems to have very strong opinions either way about playing during a pandemic. And I don't think, and we've tried to delve into this on this show with the different guests, I don't think there's a one size fits all or universal right answer. So what are I'm curious to get your perspective on that.
Yeah. So as soon as the lockdown happened in Holland, it was in March 14th. And, there wasn't much known about the virus, obviously, as we know now, but everything stopped, and I started doing live streams on the first day that actually the lockdown was announced. Like the next day, I bought I cleared some records to put my laptop in with the webcam, and I bought a sound card and try to figure out how to go live on Facebook. And then the day after, I just I was in the middle of searching my record collection anyway. I was like cleaning everything out. So I started doing live streams from the first week, like for a couple of weeks, every day. And then, I told myself, like, I'm just going to play every day up until the parties are possible again. But I figured maybe it's a month or maybe a few weeks but yeah. And then at some point, when we all came to realize that this thing was way much bigger than we could ever imagine, things became more intense. Like the lockdown was extended and everything, and then in Holland from June 1st, it was actually the date where the restaurants, the barbers, the gyms. I mean, that was from July, but like there was a lot of restrictions being taken away again. You could go to a restaurant, with limited capacity, etc., etc. But the nightlife is actually, and still now, is basically the only, it's the same for all of us, I guess. But speaking for Holland, the nightlife is right now, like the dance scene and everything, it's the only part of the whole infrastructure that is locked, that we can't do anything. And the parties that are taking place, those are like limited capacity parties. There's certain parties going on. And I was doing a lot of live streams inside my house. And then at some point I stopped. The neighbors were complaining, stuff, and I just stopped with it. And then a lot of promoters were asking me to do live streams for them, like on different locations for their pages. And I told them, like, I was starting to see the seriousness of the virus and everything. And I figured, like, I don't want to go outside. I really want to stay inside and be in the lockdown. So I chose, like, I don't want to do any live stream gigs outside of my house. I was in a lockdown for 5 months, and actually I just left, like, since March 14. I left only 1 time or 2 times to go out with the dogs, and then I always stayed inside. And so at first, like, the live stream requests came in, and I figured, like, I'm sorry, I want to do it, but I don't want to go outside of my house, so that's not an option. But then as the restrictions were, like, some restrictions were gone. Like small parties could take place in Holland, like for 100 people, as long as they're seated on their table. And we Dutch people, as organized as we are, a lot of requests came in, actually. Like, a lot of creative promoters, they were like, okay, well, we're gonna do a party where we used to do it this way, but now we're gonna move everything around. We're gonna put tables, etc. So I got a lot of requests, but for me, I made a really conscious decision to not do it, to stay in lockdown, to stay inside, and as much as I would love to, because also I want to support promoters, because I know a lot of promoters, artists, we're all going through a really rough time. So I would only already want to do it to support a lot of promoters. I know there's no money involved, or there's very little money. You have to be very flexible, and that's not the problem at all for me. But you know, for me, my main concern has always been my safety, my health. And, you know, like up until last year, I've always been very easy to catch on flu. I have a very weak immune system. And, you know, and some health stuff, you know, that's always been sort of a pain, you know, and I've always been a kind of a weak, you know, if as soon as there's something in the air, you know, I'm already knocked out for a week. You know, like I catch a flu very easily. So for me, it kind of you know, it became kind of an intense thing. Like, okay, I have to really take this seriously because I have a really weak immune system. So for me, my priority has always been my health, and so therefore I have not taken any gigs, and I feel, and I'm actually now at this point where I don't feel guilty for not playing, but I feel like, you know, I see so many promoters struggling, and I feel sorry to having to say, like, I'm really sorry, you know, I really would like to show my support, or, you know, like, even if it's just a symbolic gesture or whatever. But for me, consciously, I make the decision to not play anywhere, but not even to go anywhere. You know, I've been inside in my house for 5 months, like straight, and then I went out once with a mask, and I, you know, and I was feeling this energy outside, like people looking at me, and it was actually when the mask debate became like bigger, and I posted a picture online, and some people were giving me shit, like, why are you wearing a mask? And there was this whole new energy. I wasn't known. I didn't know. You know, everything I've done actually is basically for my own safety, you know, and hoping that we all, you know, can come out of this as safe as possible. So, but, you know, I start with my own health as first and safety. So, you know, all these things I've done for my own safety. And then I've noticed, like, people were, you know, like, giving me shit about it. Like, you know, like, someone even told me on Facebook, like, you know, because you're wearing a mask, you're giving a wrong signal to our scene, because you're supporting this segment that you know, wearing a mask, that we should obey the rules from the government, and they will keep us, you know, the whole scene in lockdown for many more months, and they will destroy the scene eventually. And
I think masks became politicized. Like,
yes, exactly. You became part of a whole politics stuff that I didn't even, because I you know, the funny thing is, also with the mask, but also with the DJing during pandemic, is like, for me, I always try to approach things from my own perspective. I'm not the one. I don't really like to judge other people. I'm quite cynical. Like, you know, you know, I have a very little, you know, I can only take care of what I have right here. You know, I can influence what I have right here, and I don't want to how do you say, overrate myself. Like, you know, if I say that you shouldn't do this, you know, who cares? You know, people don't gonna listen to, you know, I don't try to think that I'm bigger than I am in this way, you know. So if I wore a mask because it was for my safety, and I also, you know, and when I came into these discussions, when it became politicized, I was like, you can wear, if you don't want to wear a mask, you do it, you know, you do you. You know, I don't care. I'm not pro or against. I'm just choosing for myself to do it this way. And it's also the same with the DJing, because right now, you know, there's a huge, you know, just huge tension going on, and it's getting bigger. You know, like the DJs who are DJing during a pandemic, and they're getting a lot of shit about it. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, especially on Twitter. But like, I chose not to take DJ gigs. I did it for my own health. But even if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't feel comfortable to DJ right now during a pandemic. But you know, it just doesn't sit well with my spirit. But yeah, and this is the thing. I can talk. My perspective is different, because, you know, there might be some DJs who are not in a blessed position as I am. You know, maybe you maybe saved up some money, so you don't have to DJ right now. So for me, it's easier, you know, to make choices based on my situation, you know. But now there's a lot of tension about DJs where people think like they don't need the money to DJ now right now. Yeah, it's about their ego.
Benny, what would be the circumstances under which you would DJ again?
You know what? I kind of made a choice pretty early on. I think maybe as soon as the restrictions were lifted is when it's taken away, right? Lifted.
Yeah.
Okay. as soon as some restrictions were lifted and parties, like small parties with certain limited options were available again, I made a decision like I'm not gonna do it, and I think, you know, I'm probably not gonna do any gigs this year because I don't see a vaccine coming this year. I don't see a real perspective coming in this year. So I figured like the bigger parties were forbidden up until September. So I knew like up until September nothing's gonna happen. I'm not gonna do any small parties till September, you know. But I already realized like this is gonna take such a long time probably, and I you know, and I noticed I really needed to, for my own peace of mind, needed to make a choice. Like, you know, don't, you know, pretty early on I already knew like this is gonna take a long while. So I'm not counting on any gigs or any progress up until end of the year at least. So I told myself like I'm not DJing this year probably. You know, as long nothing's really changing, you know, the situation is kind of the same, you know, and I'm not gonna DJ for my own health, but also because I wouldn't feel comfortable, you know, DJing while all this stuff is going on.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I'm coming from a different position, you know, where I'm able to take off. You know, it's a privileged position where you can say like, you know, I'm not DJing this year because I'm privileged. So, but still, you know, for me, what it would take to DJ again, I would like to. I'm looking at it as a like maybe on a month, maybe a monthly base or something. But like, I already made a decision. Like this year, I'm not going to DJ, and if next year, you know, if the situation, you know, we'll see what happens with the vaccine or anything else. You know, I'm gonna look then what's going to happen. But honestly, you know, even from a health point of view, but also from a spiritual point of view, like just you know, it doesn't really sit right with me personally to DJ. I wouldn't feel comfortable in many aspects. So yeah, I don't know. I think. You know, like if next year, like I don't know if, you know, if the restriction is going to be even more lifted or not, but I'm kind of like already preparing myself for, you know, maybe wait till the vaccine comes out or some.
Can I ask you guys as well, everyone on the show, what are the conditions under which you would be starting to DJ again?
I don't.
I think
it's hard.
Well, let's not say the wrong question. Not DJ again, but under what circumstances are you accepting a gig?
I think first and foremost, before anything, it depends on where it is and how in control or out of control the situation seems to be.
Yeah.
I think I sent you guys the article that just came out recently about Switzerland announcing from October 1 they're going to increase the amount of people that can attend events to over 1,000. So things, and recently as like a couple of days ago, they you know, sent out new restrictions on people coming in from a host of different countries. You know, France, Italy. I'm not sure about France actually. Maybe France is on there, but Spain for sure. In which everybody has to undergo like a mandatory 10 or 14-day quarantine coming into Switzerland. So Switzerland seems to have gotten in front of this thing and been able to control the narrative, so to speak, and, you know, ease things back to somewhat of a normal state gradually. And I guess they're watching everything unfold, and if it starts to get a bit out of control, they're gonna roll back, you know, to more restrictions, which is happening in Spain and Italy right now. So I guess like the first and foremost is like where is the offer, you know? Obviously,
and then you would judge case by case.
Anything in America, it's got to be. I don't think you can't. I mean, look, either this is a very politicized discussion, right? I think I hear some DJs who are calling other DJs out. I don't know what their motives or agenda is, but I think maybe some DJs feel like there needs to be a collective sense of solidarity, you know, industry wide. Like we all need to make a collective decision that we are not going to put the entire industry and the and the fans that are coming out, whatever, at risk, at any, undue risk. But I don't know, because the situation is so dynamic and it's affected different regions in such varying ways. I don't think you can make that kind of a blanket statement and stick to that, and I think it's wrong to try to assume, what the motives are for someone wanting to take a gig. I don't know if it's financial. I don't know if it's ego. We don't know. We have no idea what's going on with that person and their choice in taking on a gig or not. So I think that,
David, what do you think? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Ali. I didn't want to cut you off. I just wanted to do.
Yeah, David.
I mean, like what you said is like depends where it is, but like obviously in the U.S. it's just not going to happen, and there are some areas in Europe and that might be safe, but personally, I'm not even comfortable getting on an airplane right now. So for me, I'm no gigs probably till next year. So even if let's say by the end of the year or towards the end of the year in the US that, some city becomes somewhat safe, it's getting on an airplane with a bunch of strangers. Like, I don't know if that's the part I have to get over myself. So for me right now, it's just, I don't see myself doing anything, unless I could drive somewhere nearby here in the US, that's close to LA.
Come to Holland.
But, huh?
Come to Holland.
Come live in Holland. Just drive everywhere. I'd love that.
Let's carpool.
But yeah, that'd be great.
If everything is safe, though.
Yeah. For the US, man, it's not looking good for parties coming back anytime soon.
So. For sure not in the US.
No.
And Matt?
I think for me, or I don't know, maybe speaking collectively, I don't know. I think it has to be based on the region. It depends on, because you have to treat every country separately. And even though we are part of a dance music community, I don't think it's fair to judge people by doing a gig in Italy or doing a gig wherever, because it all depends on what's going on in that country, and it's about the laws that are governing that country. But I do think, that some of these things have been going on. They are pretty sketchy because, of course, they do create clusters. They do create hotspots of infection. But I think, some of the countries that they're kind of managed by, not the government, it's like, maybe the mafia or someone else who's controlling it. So people want to make money. So, and kids want to go out and party. So, I mean, it's been happening in Berlin illegally. I'm actually going to go and have a look at this Oxy Garden next week in Berlin, where they're doing parties. They're doing parties in the garden at Berghain. So things are happening. But I do wonder whether the laws are being bent. I don't know. I've not been going out. I've not seen it. And I think if I was to accept a gig, which is what, the question you're asking is, I'd want to scope it out and see and really know what I'm is in store for me, regarding the whole process, from where I'm staying to how you get to the gig. Do you have to wear a mask? Do you not have to wear a mask? Are the crowd wearing a mask? So, and that's, I think that what we've seen as well, it's a problem for the people that we work with, because, agents can't confirm shows because every week everything's changing. So I think, like as Benny's mentioned, I think maybe the best thing is to just accept nothing,
But let's say you get offered a party that's outdoor and masks are required, but after how many hours are those masks going to come off and people's going to be like they're going to get wasted, they're going to be drinking, and just like masks are going to be off. Who's going to sit there and police everyone and say, hey, you have to wear a mask or get out? Like, I just don't see that.
Yeah, I think in Berlin now they're trying to police. There was a talk of not like an alcohol ban, but they're saying drinking is causing a problem because people, are interacting with each other much closer than they would if they weren't.
They're off.
Holland, they're discussing the same options to to prohibit alcohol after a certain time.
Yeah, and I mean in South Africa, where there is an alcohol ban, they've had a drop of crime. The crime rate's gone down 40%. So I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I mean, I think that for Germany or any European country, banning alcohol would be civil war.
It'd be riots.
Yeah,
but it's interesting because it's interesting with Ali's question, because I think like as Ali was saying, like some people are expecting maybe like a general like a collectively decision, like we're not going to do this or that, and that's where things are going really intense right now, that a group of people are judging others for DJing during a pandemic, especially those who already have the money, who could easily probably according to this group of people sit it out for maybe a longer time. And so it's like it's a really big clash right now. And personally, I always believe that you should always all the decisions that you make, you should make them from your own point of view, from your own perspective, and from your own consciousness. Are you able to look into the mirror after you made this certain decision or that certain decision? You should make it, because the thing with this whole collectively, the idea of this collective not doing this because we as a collective can grow stronger out of it. Even if I do agree with that, personally, as I said, I'm really cynical about a lot of things. So I know, I made a choice to not DJ during a pandemic, and I won't do that anytime soon. And I of course, I would love to see us all not do that. I would embrace that a lot. But I'm too cynic to realize that we're all going to be part of, we're people. Everyone's going to do their own thing, and everybody's going to, and also everybody has their own little perspective and their own little context, of why they're doing something. So, I think it's looking from a generalization is always kind of a thin, it's kind of a dangerous path to walk on, because you cannot generalize motives or whatever. But more importantly, it's like I don't agree with, I don't enjoy seeing people DJing right now. If I see them online, parties and everything, I don't enjoy it, but I don't get frustrated by it, because I'm too cynical, because I know everybody's doing their own thing anyway, and I don't have control over other people. So and this is the thing where we're clashing right now. It's like people are forcing others to think like them, or you have to think, you have to have the same ideals.
I was gonna ask you about that.
I was
gonna ask you about that, Benny, because it seems like like mass became politicized. It seems like every day there's some new topic that's becoming politicized, and I don't understand why there's such a massive negative push to make the other side agree with your point of view, right or wrong. It seems like there's certain people in our industry that are going out of their way to call other people out, to try to force them to conform to their way of thinking about every subject.
Actually,
why do you think that's happened? Or do you think that that's a result of this shutdown and how everyone's coping with it? Or do you think that was always there?
Well, it's certainly something that grew from the last couple of years, after Trump became president, after the Me Too, Black Lives Matter. So a lot of things become way much more politicized, and I'm all up for it, like for people fighting for their ideals, because, who are you if you don't have your ideals to fight for, But now everyone has their own channels, especially Twitter and everything, and people can find each other with the same ideals. So you're able to express your voice in a stronger way, and a lot of people kind of they found out, like, hey, now we have the voice, we can combine our voices and fight for what we believe in, and I think it's a beautiful thing. But I do think indeed, it's a very thin line to walk on when you're forcing others to think like you. And in relation to this specific discussion about DJing during a pandemic, like one of my best friends, Darko Esser, like I'm following him on Twitter or on Facebook, and he's one of my best friends. I love him. He's a soul brother for me. and I'm seeing him in discussion with Chris, on Twitter, back and forth, and like about Darko is very like we shouldn't DJ during a pandemic, and we should as a collective, and but I tell Darko as well, and this is like I love him like a true brother, but I tell him always like that's the difference between you and me, because as you were stating, like this certain negative vibe, but Darko or people might not even come from this negative thing, but I'm looking at it in a different way. They're coming actually from a positive point of view. But the difference between me and him, for example, is that he sees the glass half full. He thinks like the world can be changed or things can become better if we and it can, of course, but some people think like if we all do this, it can happen. I personally, I see the glass half empty, and I'm more like, I am not even going to put my energy there, because people are selfish anyway, or people have their own motives, or people, it's impossible to get everyone where you want them to be. So I'm not even going to put my energy there, because it's going to stress me out. So personally, I make this choice, like, I don't want to get into that game, like, this judging or being on this side or on that side. I'm gonna look out for myself. But I admire the energy that, in this case, Darko or other people, or they're fighting for Black lives, or they're fighting for Me Too, or they're fighting for a lot of stuff. There's everything is being called out or being put out there right now, on internet, and I think it's a beautiful thing when people are fighting for their ideals. But yeah, it's personally, I'm just too cynical to think that I would have an effect, like to speak to you or to Matt or David, or like you shouldn't DJ or you shouldn't do, because I'm too cynical to believe I can make that difference, So maybe in a way you could call me lazy, or even, how do you say, weak, but if you don't fight for something, you're not worth anything. And but it's more like, I'm very, my energy is, I spend my energy in a whole different way. I don't want to drive myself crazy if people are going to decide to make other choices than me. Like the same with the mask. I wear a mask. I got, a lot of people were like, oh, good for you, you wear a mask. A lot of people were giving me shit that, why are you wearing a mask? And I was like, I don't even care if you wear a mask or you don't, I just know I do. And I don't want to put my energy. Of course, I would hope that everyone would wear a mask, because I personally believe, things would, we would help each other. Things would become better much sooner, maybe, if we all would wear a mask. But yeah, I know that it's a big world, who am I? I don't have influence like that, so I'm not even going to put my energy into these things, because it's a way, it's a waste of energy for me, at least it is, Let's put it this way, I have to use my energy in a different way, to keep my own spirit positive. So as much as I'm looking in the discussions, and I believe a certain thing, I'm not as radical as other people or whatever, but I'm not dismissing them at all, because I think, I just think, as long as discussions are done with respect, without trying to cancel each other, because that's what's happening, that's the sentiment right now,
But Benny, I think the thing is with this whole thing is that most of the people, like say that Darko or Dave Clark or whoever may be challenging, they don't care. They're complete narcissists, and it's the same as having a go at people that do EDM. Like, do you think that if EDM DJ really cares if an underground DJ is saying your music's shit? They don't care, so it's kind of, I think it's really exhausting. And
Diablo cares. I'm not going to open that can of worms right now.
I don't know what happened there, but
I'm just saying that it's exhausting. So for me, I mean, I'm not on Twitter, and I'm trying to get you lot to leave Twitter. I think you probably make a lot more music.
You need to know what's going on. It's no, but
Benny, you seem to be on Twitter, quite a lot. I mean, you're quite outspoken on
especially
Twitter.
During lockdown.
How important is Twitter for you in either venting or communicating with your fans in the industry? It's a two-part question. That's the first part. The second part is, I noticed the issue with your new album, the manufacturing. Have you since calling them out?
I didn't call them out.
I don't think you didn't name the company yet.
No, I didn't call them out. No. You
didn't call them out. You just kind of But I'm sure they're watching.
I'm collecting leverage.
Yeah.
But not
I'm sure
out.
they're watching. They're monitoring your social media.
It's already been
sorted. It's already been sorted.
It's sorted after the it's been sorted now. But yeah.
So did that help? Did you calling them out, not by name or whatever, calling the situation that occurred out on social media, did that rectify the situation more quickly for you?
Well, actually,
so essentially your question is, did Twitter help?
Yeah. No, well, actually, it's Facebook and Twitter for me. But in regarding to like this album thing that went, the CDs that went wrong, we were in a dispute, me and the company that produced the CDs, and I was really sorry.
Still making CDs.
Yeah, I made an album, and it's a long story. Like I made like DJ tracks, and I wanted to put it on vinyl, but I figured like my music is really for DJs. That's always been my perspective. Like I make DJ tool music, nothing more, nothing less. So for me, it makes sense to put music out on vinyl, or at least for DJs, to play out. But as there's no parties, and I'm sitting on all this like really club music, I figured like I'm gonna make a mix out of the stuff that I made like during the pandemic, and so I made a mix album out of it. And I figured like, well, if I want to reach people who follow my music with DJ music, why not present it as a DJ mix, a DJ mix album. Mm-hmm. So I pressed up 1,000 CDs to give away for free, put it on Bandcamp in September on a pay what you want basis, but anyway, the company, they fucked up the whole the packaging. Like it's I ordered before with them, and it was it was beautiful quality, and everything was perfect. And now this time they delivered something that was really like cheap paper, and the package wouldn't close. Like I have it somewhere. I could even but yeah, it's online, so you can see it.
I think that's a great metaphor for probably, because your music. I mean, shifting to music now. Your music is really, really interesting. There's a lot on the surface. It doesn't seem like there's a lot going on, but there is a lot of emotion there. And I know it's probably not easy to create the mood and the atmosphere and the vibe with all your tracks. So you probably are stickler to detail. You pay close attention to these details. Like for the average producer, that CD sleeve not closing is probably, they don't even see that as a problem, right? But for you, it's a monumental problem, right?
I was really stressed.
It probably says a lot about your approach to, not only like your own moral compass, your own, perspective on life and our industry and how you fit in and the decisions that you make, but it says a lot about you as a person and your approach to your music and your craft, right? Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right. And I thank you for acknowledging that or seeing that, because for me, like the stuff that the way I go on about my music, I don't try to big it up too much or to make it more than it is. It's DJ music, or it's fit for a certain purpose. And but within it, so as much as I'm try to kind of keep that as low key as possible, I want everything to be perfect, because I don't do much. So the things that I do, I really want them to be all perfect. Like everything has to sit in the right place, and everything just had to fit, And for me, like on Facebook, it was funny because when I posted about the CD album on Facebook, everyone, like a lot of people were like, "Oh man, this is crazy. You shouldn't accept this," and And on Twitter, there were some people that were actually like, "Well, this is the digipack that I know. Like usually I'm used to they're not closing." And I was really, it's funny, like how different perspectives are. And like yesterday I was still too angry with the company because they were basically saying like, we're not going to.
You looked very angry in that video.
I'm going to tell you, I made 2 videos, and one was with text and everything, like with the name and everything. But I figured like, because what you said, like, you called them out. But for me, the first thing, when something happens, a negative, when I get a negative sense or a negative vibe, or a sense negativity, the first thing that I always do is always go ask have I done something wrong? You know, I'm always, even if I know that I'm right, like yesterday, I received this package. I received it a week ago, but the company, they were on a holiday and they said, wait for a week, we'll come back. I'll see the packages, see what's going on. And so, and then they replied to me like, well, this is the normal quality, blah, 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 blah. And I was furry, and I told them, and they said like, we're not gonna give you money back. We're not gonna make new covers for you. And I was really angry. But then so I was super angry, and I knew I was right. But the idea of going online, and that's how I formulated the tweet, and also on Facebook and on Twitter, was like, please guys, you know, I'm gonna show you this, and you tell me if, you know, if it's me going crazy or is this acceptable. You know, so my intention wasn't really like, you know, I'm gonna call them out, because I didn't use any names, I didn't use any reference, nothing. You know, I just showed the CD. Nobody knows about which company it is. For me, the first thing was still like, even though I'm in my right and I'm super angry and frustrated, I made this video and I was really, really angry. But I even cut it before I started talking, because that would be really ugly. It would start to get really ugly. But for the idea was more about, you know, showing to people like, am I going crazy? You know, can some people give some perspective on it? You know, and
so did Twitter help you?
Twitter didn't at all, actually. I was really frustrated.
No. Facebook.
Actually, a lot of people on Twitter were like, well, you know, this is the quality you should expect. But I already ordered another project with them before, and I knew the project, you know, like how everything was so much more better. So I knew there was you know, they just cheapened me off this time. You know, I paid much more money for this product, and they just gave me a whole different, you know, it was, I could see the difference. So, you know, I didn't, maybe I should have told the whole perspective, the whole context, and then people might understand me better. But yeah, to answer your question, Ali, for me, you know, like I believe in, you know, less is more with a lot of things. So the things that you do, you know, they have to be well. Otherwise, you know, there's also a very thin line when you're choosing to do things in a very minimalistic way. You know, the things that you actually are using need to be good and big. You know, it's like a house. When you're decorating a house, like, you know, it's funny, like I had a guy come over like a while ago, decorating a balcony with plants and stuff. And then my girlfriend, she was saying like, well, maybe we should put everywhere like little stuff and da. And then this guy said like, well, you guys have a bit, it's more like a terrace. It's like, well, you guys have a big terrace, you know, and a big terrace, you know, it's better to keep just like a couple of big items, you know, and keep it empty, you know, just 3 or 4 big items, and not try to fill everything with little stuff. And it was funny because I was hearing him say that, and I was like, well, that's my approach actually to everything, and you know, in how I try to do things, you know,
minimize to maximize.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Rich Alton was first, but yeah, it's you know.
No, actually, I told him that.
There you go.
Benny, you also
true story. Wait,
Yeah,
guys, I have to stop you here. I'm sorry, but I have to be the party pooper. I need to get back to the pandemic DJ thing for one more time. we cannot.
What about you,
guys? I haven't voiced my opinion yet, and I need to. I have played 3 gigs so far in this pandemic, and honestly, I can look in the mirror and I would play them right away again. So, what are my circumstances under which I accept the booking? I told myself it needs to be under like the least amount of restrictions possible. Right, so I've refused to pay parties where they say like it's a movie theater with 4 cars, you know, or people have to sit down, or people have only their circle they can dance in, because this will not work. It will not be a good party. It will not be a good experience. I don't want to be part of that. No matter what the price, no matter what. It's just like I didn't want to do this. So I told myself I'm going to accept parties. Offers where I know the promoter who's doing a good job. In certain countries where you can trust the numbers of the government when it comes to infections rates. Where are the infection rates? Obviously, it needs to be legal. So I played 2 of those 3 gigs were in Switzerland. And in hindsight, these were amazing gigs. They were restricted only of the amount of people that were allowed to come. But otherwise, everything was traced back. So if there had been an infection, which there wasn't, it could have been traced back. This is why I think that illegal parties during the pandemic is the most idiotic thing to do, right? I played 1 gig in Rome, which was perfectly fine at the time as they did the gig. It was a big terrace. It was restricted on the amount of people, and it was perfectly fine to play there. So for me, I was able to like, okay, if it's like this, I'm happy. The flying experience was not a nice experience, but I'm happy to play these gigs because out of various reasons. Because I think we need to start to play some gig, or let's say I'm feeling like I want to start to play some gigs where it's somewhat safe because life needs to go on in certain safe areas where the infection rates are low, which is perfectly fine in Switzerland, which we can see. The funny thing is with all the DJs that are criticizing other DJs right now who are playing somewhere, I'm actually agreeing with them, like on most topics. The only thing I don't agree on is why do you paint it with such a broad brush, you know? It's like, if it's not possible to play a gig in the USA, why do you play a gig in Switzerland? Well, because it's completely different. They had a completely different approach towards the virus. They did a whole better job. And it is somewhat safe to play a gig. I don't really like the way how things are being generalized in a way, you know. It's
I think it's because a lot of these people like to control they like to dictate the narrative and control the narrative.
Yeah.
That gives them a feeling of empowerment. It's like I want to control by what I say where you can play or not. You know.
I don't want to assume that. I don't know. I don't want to.
Guys, you can turn it off. You can turn it off at any point. You can get a studio, make some music, and turn off all of that chat, all that noise. You don't have to listen
but
to
we're
it.
all part of this.
Are you talking to us now? Or are you talking to the criticizing people?
The criticizing people as well, because I think a lot of these things is that a lot of these guys or girls or whatever. I mean, they're not politicians. They're not. I mean, why should I be taking their lead or following their commands? You know,
you don't.
I don't.
Yeah. But look,
Ali, they get angrier. The funny thing is, the more you don't, the angrier they get. And sometimes there's a part of me that wants to get them really angry.
Yeah.
But, you know, Ali, it's not you said like it's it makes them feel empowered, but I actually think it's more about, it's not about them wanting to feel empowered, but it's them being, they think they can change something, which is a beautiful thing. So they're frustrated that in this case, you know, some DJs or some people are blocking their view on how things to go better. So it's not empowering, but it's more frustration.
I think Benny,
frustration not. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this. I think a lot of it is obviously it's pure vanity, and people want to be heard. And you know, the message isn't any different to maybe anyone else. But of course, a lot of these guys or girls are artists. They're DJs. They're frustrated because they don't have these crowds to play to. So now they're venting all of their frustration on Twitter or social media, when really what they should be doing is getting in the studio and making music.
Yeah, but okay, but
listen to Matt.
If you put it in,
that's what I'm doing.
No, but I mean,
and it's working.
Like they're looking at it from a different perspective. Like let's as I said before, like, you know, I'm not DJing. I wouldn't DJ in this next in the next year or something.
Yeah.
And I'm in a privileged, because I'm in a privileged position to do so. So for me, it's easier to approach it from this way. But I do understand this feeling when there's there are certain DJs that make so much money, and we know how much money is being made. Yeah. You know, but I don't know if it's still being made right now. And it's, you know, I do understand the frustration from these people, because what they're seeing is, and this is what I also believe in, we're all part of the same chain. Yeah. You know, if you want it or not, we're all part of this whole same infrastructure. We're all part of nightlife. And, you know, we could call it cynically, it's our scene or it's not our scene, but we're all part of, well, I do it both.
Cheers.
But yeah, we're all part of this whole, you know, like from the outside, you know, from the government's point of view, it's not like, oh, they're business techno, they're underground, they're credible, they're commercial. What? No, this is the dance music community. And so I can understand if someone sees a DJ who, you know, who's really popular, making a lot of money, you know, and accepting gigs right now, and doing these shows, and with that, you know, like affecting the infection rates, and even if it's legal, you know, it's like it's an ethical point of view. It's an ethical question you have to ask yourself. And if you choose to do it, as I said before, if you say you can look yourself in the mirror, then it's fine. But I do understand where the frustration comes from, because in the end, they're the ones, like especially the DJs who are not the popular ones and not the ones making a lot of money. They're the ones going to be more victimized.
I understand. What?
I was going to say this has been away, Benny, and I think in what we've seen in the last few months is promoters, they feel that they've only got this, like maybe a few months before maybe they have a lockdown again. So the promoters, of course, that's why they're booking Ami Lenz, Peggy Goo, whoever, because they need to maximize what they're doing. And I mean, you can't blame them, for doing that. And I think for people to criticize that, they're really short-sighted, or they don't have an understanding of, or they're blindsided by how this industry works in the first place.
But I also think
I understand the frustration for some out there. But the generalization and the assumption that's going on, assuming like they know what is happening in the whole world in every corner. So I'm playing a gig tomorrow. I'm actually having a booking tomorrow, and I'm playing in Leipzig. And guess what? The party is a charity party to help out the whole club scene in Leipzig, and co-sponsored the party. It's open air, and it's co-sponsored by the city of Leipzig. Wow. So it couldn't be even any more official. There is no restrictions. There's a 10,000 square meter area, and there's 999 tickets were sold for this place. And it is there. It's a charity party. It's to help raising funds to help the club community of Leipzig. So. And the only problem I might have with that is that some of my colleagues calling me a fucking idiot to do that.
Yeah. Which club is it, Chris?
It's not a club. It's an open air. It's by distillery.
So it's a joint venture between all the clubs.
It's a joint venture in an open air field, co-sponsored by the city of Leipzig.
Chris, I think it's more. I think that the perspective is more primal. It's like, people are looking at another DJ during this lockdown where they have no gigs, they're not playing. People are looking at another DJ, videos of another DJ playing, and they're not playing.
Yeah. And they're looking at a DJ that has his name.
Yeah, it's like, why the fuck is he playing and I'm not playing?
Ali, I think that's also a little bit assuming, but that's also a little bit assuming, like they assume how much money every DJ has.
It's not even about that. Like, forget the money. It's about the act of DJing.
I know, but in that way, you're also assuming that they're bitter. But I do believe they're more coming. I feel the good thing in humans, and I think they're coming from a good place. And what they're frustrated about is that they make it that some DJs who play these gigs make it harder for everyone to get back to business. Yeah. That's where the frustration mostly comes from.
But especially because because they put their energy on the DJs. The frustration, because the DJs that are playing or the DJs that are seeing online, those are actually already the DJs on the top of the food chain. Yeah. So that's the psychology where they come from. It's like they already made so much money, assuming that they did.
Yeah.
So they made so much money. Why are they? Like if I would say, like if all these DJs that are playing right now, if they would have been changed, switched with unknown DJs, local because this is also where the frustration comes from. It's like when this lockdown happened, we as a collective, or like a lot of people, part of our culture, they were been saying like, we hope that when everything starts again, everything's going to be more local, everything's going to be smaller, like the festivals, everything, the bubble was already on this way exploding. So everybody was in during this really negative time, still like hopeful about the future. Like maybe this is like the boom that we needed, and we're going to grow into a new organic system where everything starts from the bottom again, with a healthy club scene, a healthy part. And then the first parties you're seeing right now, it's not the local DJs or the DJs, that were on the, on the lower part of this chain or whatever, but it's actually the DJs that already made so much money during
Benny, I think
it fuels their frustration.
Yeah, this was happening before COVID. what's happening. You know, the fact that the promoters, club promoters, would pay the money for the biggest, you know, the hottest DJ, rather than invest time in locals. This was happening.
Now it's a combination, you know, because it's also putting health, you know, it's a different.
Struggling already before, and of course now it's, you know, it's been magnified, and that's why I think
actually, like what you're saying is like, of course, this is what was happening, and this is what I was saying in the beginning, like for clubs, you know, how it became much harder for clubs to get certain DJs. But that I always, you know, the frustration from people coming at that in that context, I would always say, well, this is how it works, you know, like the promoters want to book DJs who sell tickets, you know, like, you know, so this is how the things work, and it's part of capitalism, the system, and either you're with it or you're against it, but it is how it works. So my vision has always been like, don't hate the player, hate the game. You know, you know, this is how it is, but now
everyone's hating the player right now.
Sorry?
Everyone's hating the player. It's like it's easy to hate the player.
But it's just health. You know, there's health involved now. It's not just money. You know, it's not just about money.
I think that's the thing. I think a lot of DJs that are taking shows at the moment. Obviously, there's a huge risk that they're going to be, if they're going from country to country, they'll be taking the forest with them. And I do, you know.
That's the thing. I do believe that there are some DJs out there who do it wrong and who are a wrong example, you know. I think that's the only thing. That's the only thing I mean is like you need to go on it with a little bit more of nuance. It's there's different, you know. You need to make a difference. And what I see with the people who are criticizing like DJs who play right now, like really harshly, is that they take everything that feeds their narrative to judge you. For example, I'm going to be playing that gig in Leipzig tomorrow. Am I going to post about it? No, I'm not going to post about it. And, you know, obviously they're going to be something like, you're not posting about it because you feel bad you're playing the gig. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not posting about the gig to have people feel really shitty about it in somewhere in Miami who can't do a party. Oh, look at over there, who's doing a party. What good does it do for anyone to see a party right now online, you know? I don't want to give the wrong impression for some people in some areas too, to feel like, oh, if he's playing a gig, it's fine. No, it's fine to play a gig in this area, not in your area. So I'm not going to post about it. It's so simple, but they take all that, and that's what kind of like drives me crazy, and put so much division in our scene. Everybody should chill out a bit because we all want the same thing in the end.
But you know what, Chris? That what you're explaining right now, it's something I didn't even see. And I think, you know what I think is very important? I think it's super important for those who are taking the gigs, if you're rich or you're not rich or whatever, wherever in the chain you are, if you're taking the gigs and people are, you know, they're trying to criticize you for about it, you know, explain yourself. Like, I mean, you shouldn't feel the need to explain yourself because others are criticizing you. But as being part of all of the same structure, well, you know, like what you're saying now, like honestly, I was thinking as well, like, you know, but more from a cynical point of view, like I get why DJs don't post it because they get this backlash. But now you're explaining me, you're giving me a reason. Like I'm like, that makes pretty much sense, and it sounds pretty legit.
We've all watched Chris try to explain himself and just dig himself a deeper hole. Not because what he's saying is
you mean on
wrong,
Twitter,
but because it's feeding into. It's literally feeding into the narrative that they are trying to create around the situation. Like that's why sometimes we're just like, just Chris, stop. They don't understand. They don't want to understand.
But really, what's the percentage of people who actually give a shit about all that? It's
very little.
I'm betting I bet you the majority of people that see these videos and DJs on Instagram are like so excited to see their favorite DJs are playing again. And there's that like, I don't know, 2-3% that are just like, how dare you do this?
It's like the gig we do where like there's 5,000 people dancing and then there's like one person that's going like this.
But you know, but you know, we still have to deal with that. And you know, there is one Twitter account, for example, which I don't want to mention because it's an anonymous Twitter account. We don't know who is behind that. And that Twitter account, basically, we have to deal with it because it's challenging Ali and me. Why did you accept a gig in Malta for the BPM festival? You know, why did you accept that gig? Like, what is none of your fucking business? Why am I accepting that gig? Exactly out of the reasons I told you earlier. Because I think I leave it up to the Maltese people to judge if it's safe to do a party or not. They judged it was safe to do a party. I'm accepting the gig. Matt and I, we're in the same booking agency. They wouldn't even offer us or forward us a request where they would think it's kind of fishy. So yes, Malta, BPM Festival, yes, I accepted it. Why not? Because from my point of view, it felt safe. Now, Malta changed their mind because infection rate went up. So they canceled the party. Perfect. Doesn't that make actually our decision right? Because we're trusting that government, no party because they don't feel it's safe. Fine, no party. You know, it's as simple as that. I feel like it.
People are hoping that.
But I don't want to be criticized. Why did I accept the gig? I wouldn't have never accepted the gig if Malta would say no, we don't want to have that gig party here. You know,
it's psychologically, it's a very thin line because people are expecting DJs who are taking the gigs, you know, to look above the law, above the general consensus coming from the governments. You know, they're touching you on your personal moral, and this is it's such dangerous to go there because, you know, it's
I know.
And that's, you know, and even if you say like, but it's the law, you know, then you will still be criticized like, well, but that's where I think like, you know,
absolutely, but there's another, you know, there's another little point in we're now like 6-7 months into this pandemic, and we know a little bit more about the virus than we did back in March. You know, when it started back in March, it might as well could have happened that a week later half of the world population would have died because the virus is so heavy. So I was the first one who say like, stay inside, lock down, you know. And by now we know a little bit about the virus. We know infection rates of different areas of different countries. So I do believe that people really want to gather. Where humans are people who want to party, who want to get together. And if we don't slowly, under controlled circumstances, legally in areas where it's possible, like just listen to my words, in areas where it's possible, like Switzerland, allow parties, people will do illegal parties. And illegal parties is the worst that could happen right now because you cannot trace down any infections, you cannot trace it back, you have no control whatsoever of anything. And it's ridiculously stupid, I feel, to say like we shouldn't even allow legal parties. You know, it's like, because people will gather. And Matt knows that in Berlin, the illegal parties is the problem. These are the problems.
Yeah, I mean,
and now I've said everything, we can move on.
No, it is. I mean, the stats are, it's the young kids, isn't it? It's the young people that are carrying the virus. And I mean, but it's, you know, it's...
There's many ways for you can look it from, you know, there's many ways. And it's dangerous when people are trying to force you to look from one way, but even if that way is legit, there are many ways. And as you said, like yesterday, we had our prime minister with a new press conference about everything going on, and he mentioned like, you know, it's not allowed anymore to have more than 6 people in house, you know, like small gatherings, which was before, like a couple of weeks it was possible, but the infection was mainly growing with people inside of houses and family gatherings. So now it's not, it's prohibited. So even the prime minister advised people, like, if you want to meet up, go to a bar, which is quite ironic, you know, like, so some people take it as like, well, now you're enthusiastic people to go to a bar, you know, but you know, but it's choosing between one bad option or another bad option, and you know, and what's the best of those, what's the best in a bad situation. So what you're saying in regarding to legal parties and official parties, where at least you can trace people down if it works, you know, according to the system that they're creating to detect everyone at the party, you know, then it makes sense, you know. But yeah, people, when things become politicized, people are going to take things, as Ali is saying, and putting in their own narrative, and you know, they put a different spin on it. So, and then it becomes really hazy and weird. So there's many, the thing is, you know, there's many things of looking at it. And I think the most important thing is that you or me as the one who is not DJing, or you or maybe accepting certain gigs, or the other ones who are accepting a lot of gigs. It's about, you know, be holding yourself accountable. Like, do you feel comfortable with it? Because my golden rule with this is within this whole DJ thing has always been, let's say regarding to music, is like, you have to be really, really, really comfortable where you are as a DJ, with the music you play, with everything you present about yourself. Because you know why? If you really strongly believe in what you're presenting, then the critics won't really matter to you. They will matter to you because you want to be part of a conversation, because you care about this whole thing, about everything around you. But it won't change your mind, or it won't, or at least you will listen to it. Maybe you will be inspired by it. But as soon as you're close to your own self, you won't really get hurt by all the criticize, because you believe in what you're doing at that moment. And this goes also for your choice, your ethical choices for DJing during a pandemic, or doing this or doing that. It's and the thing that and that's what interesting. What I think was when you said about why you're not posting this picture, is like like I've seen it, like if I don't see the footage on the pages of these artists, I was also thinking like they're probably not doing it because they don't feel really comfortable about it,
But probably that is the case
now,
also.
But you're saying actually now, it could also be that, and it makes sense. So, and I think like even though if you don't agree with the people criticizing you, it doesn't hurt to communicate with each other. But again, as Ali is saying, these days, everything you say, I do understand why a lot of people, those that are being criticized might be quiet, because everything could be taken out of the wrong context and been put in a all different political spin and used against you. So somewhere maybe you're not communicative enough to be like, well, I rather not join the discussion, I just leave it, which gives the haters more reason to fuel the fire even more. So it's such a complicated situation there, and I do believe that in the end we all want the same thing, but everybody's looking at it from their own approach. And it's very and Twitter, Twitter is the place where you cannot really be in the middle. You have to be either this or you have to be that, and then everything just that Twitter is based on that. I mean, 140 characters.
I think it's a perfect storm of people via social media being able to step outside of anonymity. Like people aren't anonymous anymore. They have a name, a Twitter handle or Facebook handle, whatever, and then they can say whatever they want to say and try to get people's attention. It's a perfect storm of that, the pandemic, jealousy,
and also not being able to dance.
Frustration.
Not being able to dance, right?
Yeah, but not being able to go to a party, because that's the thing. House music, techno. I mean, this music. If we look at it in a bigger perspective than our own egos or our own place in this whole industry or whatever. I was thinking about it, like when I'm DJing, I sometimes, if I didn't like a gig that much, some of my friends would at least tell me like, well, at least you gave the people a good time or whatever. And, and it's like, well, that's good enough. Then, I'm happy about that. But, during this 5-6 months in lockdown, I came to actually realize also with me, like I'm triggered much faster with things. If I see something, that I don't agree with, or I feel like, I feel much more triggered. And I came to realize like, it's not only the people that we're actually giving it great time. It's also therapy for our own selves, playing out, hearing music loud, putting your thoughts into, how is this loop constructed? How did he make this bass line? Or, how is this affecting the people on the deck? And, you're putting your mind into something so abstract and something more emotional on such a deeper level that, at the time that you come home, you don't really, you already, you relativate a lot of stuff. You're like, it's out there. And I didn't realize it was so therapeutic, in a much more deeper way. And I can understand that a lot of frustration now is also because of, we were not able to dance. We're not able to hear music really loud.
But Benny, did that play a part with your digipack then too?
Definitely.
I'm never going to look at anything like that ever the same way.
No, never. I want to get back to that digipack, Benny. What's the name of the album, and when are you going to release it?
Well, I'm going to release it when the new CDs are. No, it's.
And I get a beer in the meantime.
All right. It's a project. I have an alter ego. It's called Rod, R-O-D. And I like mainly like more stripped down techno stuff. And like after the lockdown, after the corona, the lockdown happened, I figured like I need to keep myself creative. And I was kind of like fed up with making music using a computer and everything. Cheers. I was fed up making music using computer. I was fed up with my old stuff. Like, you know, I started doing a lot of DJ tools, and then at a certain point I wanted to do more melodic stuff because I wanted to create more impressions. And then at a certain point I just got fed up with everything, and then I didn't make music for 6 months, and then the Corona thing happened, and I kind of, you know, I have all this hardware sitting here, like, you know, for the ideal moment when my studio would be ready, you know, and it just kept collecting dust for 5 years. And, you know, and then I knew the lockdown was, you know, and as soon as the lockdown entered, I knew like this is probably the time to just go with what I wanted to do all the time, actually, from the start, you know, make music with just hardware, not using any computers. And so I just connected some equipment. I put it on the diner table in the kitchen. And, you know, and
Benny, Benny, you made a series of tracks using, correct me if I'm wrong, a particular patch on the Juno 106, right?
Yes.
Or no?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Because there's a certain, there's a patch on the Juno 106. I think it was an EP for Afterlife, or maybe at the same time that you released the Afterlife thing, you released something on your own label.
Yeah.
And it was all that, but that was one of my favorite sounds ever so for me, it was like an instant memory trigger of the Juno 106, that piece of, you know, hardware. And that was my main synth in my studio. I still have my old Juno here.
Are your chips working?
Huh? It was actually, I think I sold my original one, and then a friend of mine knew how much I loved it and I missed it, and he refurbished his and gave me his as a gift. Yeah. So I have a refurbished Roland Juno 106 here. But you consciously used that patch, and it was so interesting to see how many incredible hooks. Each song had a specific hook that was amazing. So you had all these songs using this one sound, and I'm sure in the studio you were, you know, dicking around with it, and you came up with maybe 6 or 7 hooks right off the bat that you were like probably thinking, how can I weave all this into one song? But then you probably decided, hey, might as well just, is that what happened?
It's quite funny how you say it, because, you know, the way I work is, especially now with the hardware, is like I'm trying to just use one drum computer and one synth, because, as you know, like I like to limit myself as much as possible, because also with the chair, like as soon as I know that I'm really comfortable and I have so many options, with my ADHD, I know that I have too many options, and I'm gonna lose sight, organization. So I try to limitize myself as much as possible, so that I can really squeeze everything out. You know, I'm very economical when it comes to that. Like, you know, if I know I have this synth, you know, and I know, okay, now I hear already 10 different tracks, and I'm already here, 10 different tracks, you know, so I'm gonna focus on that. But if I know I have a lot of stuff and I have so many options, it just gonna drive me crazy. So I'm very efficient in trying to, you know, keep one good idea is for me. It's like, okay, let's work that out and see if it's still good in a month or so. But it's like you know, you come from it's a different approach, I guess. But yeah, it's funny you're seeing that.
But talking about your productions, Matt, you know that you remixed Benny back in 2007.
I remember. Yeah, I do.
You know who the other guy was?
Huh?
You know who the other guy was?
Well, you produced that record together with a guy called Capuchon, who I think turned out to be a successful DJ in his own right at some point under a different name.
Afrojack.
Oh, really?
Afrojack.
Wow.
And there's a track, Benny Rodrigues and Capuchon, The Finger, Radio Slave remix. It was out in 2008 on Spin Club Records.
Wow. I think that was when I was playing for you as well, Chris, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
So, Chris, you had Afrojack on your label.
I actually had Afroshop on my label
I had Steve Angelo on my label under a different name a long time ago too.
No, actually, it's funny, Benny. You introduced me to I don't even know his real name,
Nick.
But I remember, wasn't it at Nighttown when I did a DJ gig there, and you came visit with Nick, together with Nick, and you kind of introduced me. And I remember you guys were standing there, like we were just chatting with each other, and you were saying like, "This is the guy I'm making some music with," and you remember that? Yeah. Wasn't that Nighttown?
I don't think it's Nighttown. I think it was Maasilo or another party in Rotterdam. But I know that I presented. You know, the funny thing is, like, when Nick started, I call it, yeah, well, I call him differently, but it doesn't really make sense in English. But when we met each other, he was more into house and techno and the stuff that I was playing in a club in Rotterdam, Now Wow, which was kind of my breakthrough in Holland. And that's where he first went out and heard the music. And he was kind of inspired by that music. And then a few years later, when we became friends and we wanted to make music together, I was the DJ and he was like more the producer. And then, you know, but he was already doing like a lot of more poppy stuff. And then but he was always talking to me about, you know, I love Joris Ford. He was a big fan of Dubfire, by the way, like Roadkill and the track on the Ribcage. You know, those were really like his favorite tracks that time. And Radio Slave, you know, these were all like big influences for him, you know. And so when we started doing music, I was like, well, I can put my, you know, my musical vision, you know, like how to leave things out, and, you know, and a certain, you know, use pads or instead of sine waves or whatever, or square wave or like sawtooth waves. So those sawtooths, and then so we kind of worked together with his production talent and with my ideas. And you know, like, he basically wanted to make music that Dubfire could play or Radio Slave could play, because he was really into those tracks. Like he knows everything from you two guys.
I'll never forget meeting him. I met him at the lobby. I think very early in his career. He was really shy and just kind of like,
he was never really shy.
Very normally, and he was like, yeah, I'm a big fan. And somebody, like, it was a mutual friend or his agent or somebody who knew me introduced us. And then I saw them years later after all the success, and it was like a total transformation. It was like a different person, but still really nice guy, you know.
You know, the funny thing is, as you said, like Ali, like, oh, Chris, you released an Afrojack record. I think it's even more funny that I actually did a record with Afrojack under his own name on Dave Clark's label, before Afrojack became the Afrojack, you know. And you know how, you know, Dave has his opinions, you know, especially against EDM.
We try not to talk about Dave on this show.
Okay, sorry. But I kind of love the irony that I will always be the one that put Afrojack on his label, you know, like, it's like, but it was, you know, it was because he was inspired by Chicago, Green Velvet, Dave Clark DJ style, like really pumping 140 BPM Chicago cuts. So we did a record on his label. But yeah, it's funny how things turn out, you know, like he went that way, I stayed in my lane, and, you know, and here we are. But yeah, it's we're here.
I have a good Benny Rodrigues story. I just remembered. Oh. Do you remember when it was also in Ibiza? I think you were with Michel DeHaye. I was on the dance floor at Amnesia listening to Ricardo.
Yeah.
Super fucked up. So we all are. And all of a sudden, like, I'm in the middle of the dance floor with a few friends. All of a sudden, you turn up with Michel DeHaye, and we're hanging, and I can't believe you're on the dance floor. And I'm always trying to drag other DJs onto the dance floor, because a lot of DJs like to hang back by the bar or in the booth and kind of look cool. I'm like, dude, if you're enjoying the music so much, let's go enjoy it with the people, because it's a whole different experience. So you'll often find me in the middle of the dance floor. And then all of a sudden you turn up with Michel DeHaye and you're grooving. And then Ricardo played Total Confusion by A Homeboy, Hippie, and a Funky Dread. That classic kind of rave anthem. Yeah, it was. And I was going ape shit because I couldn't believe Ricardo was playing that. And I remember you didn't know what it was, and I told you.
No, I knew the record. I knew the record, of course. But you actually...
I had to remind you the name or something, and then you're like... or maybe I suggested, I don't know. You're like, I'm going to re-edit this. You're like, I'm going to do an update of this, and I'll send it to you next week.
Even better. No, even better. I mean, I was the sober one, so I remember the story exactly. Sorry. No, but
tell me.
No, Michel and I, like, we're a big Villa-Lobos fan. He was playing Amnesia, and we were like, in the summer, we're like, you know what? Let's take a flight. You know, it's a direct flight, Rotterdam, Ibiza. He's playing for I don't know how many hours. Let's go over. And then we're on the dance floor, really having the time of our lives. You know, he's playing really dope, and and then we saw you, and I never met you before. We were in touch maybe via email, but
I think Loco Dice introduced us once, like.
Oh yeah, at a party, yeah. But you didn't remember. But anyway, yeah. Like later, I remembered you, and you said, "Oh yeah." But anyway, we properly met on the dance floor in Amnesia during Ricardo, and he's playing the Total Confusion track, and you're going really crazy, like, oh, he's playing that, and then you all of a sudden you turn to me and you said like, this sounds like you should do a remix of it. You should do a Rod remix of it. You know, I hear the sound. You know, you were really like, you saw epiphany. You were on the dance floor and you're like, you should do a remix. And I didn't even think about it, you know. But you saying that, and then I was listening to the record and I heard the ravey steps, and I'm like, it makes sense actually. And then basically with your inspiration that you said it, I went home. We took the first flight home at 7 a.m. Ricardo was still playing. We took the flight back. I didn't sleep. I basically went into the studio and I made a re-edit, and then you can tell the rest of the story.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, the amazing thing about that is for my generation, that was such an iconic record, and it evokes so many memories hearing it again on the dance floor. And then your update made it an iconic record, like even better. It like extended the shelf life.
I don't want to say
degree. I'll never forget, like I was playing back to back with Carl Cox at Space, and he didn't have it because you gave me that before everyone else. And I played it, and Carl knows the record and he knows the original. And when he heard that, he lost his mind. So it was such a
video. You guys were playing
beautiful. Yeah, it was such a beautiful, from Ricardo playing it.
It was amazing.
You know, for us on the dance floor to hear it, and then you to take it further. It was such a beautiful passing of the baton, you know?
Especially because it came out on the original label. Because when you played it with Carl, I gave it to you because I sent it you the evening after. I was like, thank you for, you know, putting me on this record, like make an edit. And I did it. I sent it to you. 2 days later, you're playing with Carl in Space, one of the final dates. And I was watching the live stream, like, will he play it? Will he play? And then you played it. And then I saw Carl going really apeshit on the live stream. Like,
you could tell, right?
And I had goosebumps. I was like, whoa. And then you told me you gave it to Carl. And then Carl started playing it every week in Space. And he started playing it everywhere. And then, you know, like a lot of kind of a certain hype started growing, like, you know, what's this new remix? And even more beautiful, I gave it to Ricardo like a couple of months later, and he started playing it. So it was really, everything came together like really beautiful. But the cherry on the top was when the original label, the Casper Rowland, which was the original producer, he died.
It wasn't Rising High, right?
Rising High, yes, Rising High Records. Yes.
Casper Pound was the
Casper Pound, exactly.
Casper Pound.
Yeah, and then they reached out to me like, or they actually was online like, who's, you know, there's remix that Carl's playing and Villalobos, whose remix is this? We really like it. And then some people put them out, you know, they said like, this is Rod, Benny Rodrigues, Rod to them. And then they contacted me like, hey, we're the original label. And we spoke with the family from the producer, the sister, I believe, who actually made the record, and you know they're really fond of the record and Carl playing it, so we would like to put it out on vinyl on the original label. So for me, that was like a super beautiful story that basically started because I met you on the dance floor with Ricardo playing it, you know, and then you tell me to remix it, I give it to you, you play it, Carl gets crazy, you give it to Carl, he plays it everywhere, I give it to Ricardo, the one that actually played it for me, for you to inspire me to make a remix. You know, so he starts playing it as well, and then in the end, the original label puts it out. So, yeah, that was a really beautiful, like a beautiful story. I was really thank you for that.
These are the positive stories of our industry that, you know, is nice to expose to everyone, as opposed to all the name calling and cancel culture, or whatever. So that's why I wanted to kind of bring it up.
We need more of this at the moment.
It's inspiring. You know, the thing is, and that's the thing. Like right now, I believe, you know, like, you know, we're in this music thing because we were inspired by the music at some point. You know, we were inspired by, maybe, like I said before, like some people might be inspired by seeing a DJ on TV waving hands and be like, oh, I want this as well, which is okay. But also other people are inspired by hearing this music, or, you know, a certain culture where you want to be part of. And I think these two things, this inspiring part and this criticizing part, they should go hand to hand with each other. You know, they should be, you know, it's all part of the same thing. But now there's not really a way to get inspired, or at least there's not a way to share your inspiration with a lot of people, at least not in a physical way. So that's why the other frustration is taking the overhand right now.
I think, Benny, when we were younger as well, I think, you know, a lot of people, if you were into digging, if you're into hip hop, or if you're into house music, it opened you up into so many cultures, you know, it was like a way of finding out about how, you know, what's going on in New York or Chicago. You'd read, you know, you'd be so into it, you'd read about it. So, and I think that's what's lost now, especially with music, with people idolizing just DJ culture, because they're not really digging. There's not that mentality, and if they do want to find out about music, it's just one click away as well. So it's
it's so totally.
Matt, you've been speaking of inspiration. I think you, by putting up the videos of your process and how you arrange on the APCs, I found that to be very inspirational.
Cool, you should do it.
To me, in reconnecting, I think we talked about it a few times on the show, like reconnecting with that old way of arrangement, you know, analog mixing desk, but you're doing it, you know, obviously
I'm doing that while you guys are like arguing on Twitter.
Exactly.
Hey Matt, I actually just bought an APC, a little mini one, because when I saw you using it, I was like, man, I never had a way of launching clips in Ableton.
Yeah,
I would always do it with the mouse, so just record it. But definitely, that's helped my production a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get, if I had like 4 APC 40s, I think then you'd have, I mean, they're amazing. They're so, you just literally plug them in, and that's it, and then just record.
I actually have the website open because I was early on looking at the controllers. I have the website open. I was looking at the controllers early on. So Matt, that is very inspiring. And it would actually suit our idea of the 12-hour DJs and Beers show. We just move to everyone's studio, you know, look at the production process. Then we all take a drink, and then we move over to the next person's studio, and we'll take our time with it. Benny, that's a great idea, isn't it?
Actually, you know what? I was thinking about it. Like I heard you say it last week. And I was like, I will watch the full 12 hours, you know, I'll be, you know, because I wanted to say it in the beginning, by the way, but we just got right into it. But, you know, honestly, you know, first of all, thank you guys for having me on the show, because I'm really, you know, this show, I've been watching every single episode from the start, and, you know, and it's really, really, and it's been really helping. Like, you know, it's been a challenging time for every one of us. And I must say that this show, you know, specifically this show, it shows me, as you were saying before, Ali, like it showed me like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not alone in this world. We're part of this thing, you know, we're part of this culture. And maybe some people they're thinking, oh, these guys are this or these guys. But for me, I'm looking at a point of view like we're 5 DJs here, or 6 actually. I don't know what drum so is, but we're all part of the same culture thing where we you know, we're music lovers, you know, and we express ourselves in different ways, but we're all here for the same thing. And seeing you guys chat every week about things that are, you know, concerning me as well as a DJ, as someone in this, you know, in the scene, you know, it's really been a sort of a beacon of light every week to kind of, you know, it helps really against lone. As I said, I've been like in lockdown for a long time, and, you know, I'm here with my girlfriend and my dogs and everything, but you know, like I you know, as I said before, I was realizing like the therapeutical effect of DJing outside, and you know, just putting your thoughts into the music, and then come home and realize that, hey, I'm relieved, you know, I don't have to stress about little stuff, about CDs not opening or whatever. But also, you know, hearing you guys talk about my scene, you know, like, you know, we being part of the same thing, it also makes me feel less lonely, you know, during these times. You know, I think
it's important. We knew from the beginning, I mean, I think the reason why we all got together is there was so much uncertainty in the beginning about what was happening, that we tried to talk about it publicly to make sense of it all. And in doing that, we thought we could provide ourselves with a little bit of therapy as well. Like sometimes, I'll be honest with you guys, sometimes, you know, there's good weeks and bad weeks, good days and bad ways. Sometimes I feel like I'm falling apart, I'm unraveling. But I know come Thursday, I got to get it together to come on the show. And like literally, you know, I you know, do whatever, you know, I can to put myself into the right mood. If I know that we have a special guest on and there's a lot of questions I want to ask them, and some research I want to do on their past, whatever, ultimately it helps me cope with this situation that we're in. So it provides a lot of therapy, and it's also the anchor that I need to keep my shit together. on a weekly basis. And I feel like from the feedback that I've gotten from other people who are watching, it seems like it provides them some level of comfort and sanity as well. And thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting and coming on.
Really, man, it's you know, I've seen it grow from the beginning. Yeah, you know, just people talking, because this is what we do when we see each other. You know, when we see each other on the road, you know, we talk shit, we talk about serious stuff, but we talk. And even though, as I said in the beginning, like, you know, like, how do you cope with being sober in a world where a lot of people are drunk or whatever? And, you know, and I said, like, I have my system for it. But as I said as well, like, it's a circus, and you should you know, it's a circus, and you should see it as a fun circus. And so when I see my colleagues on the road, even though I know a lot of things are probably bullshit, you know, people are saying stuff that next day they probably forget or whatever, but you're having a social interaction at that moment that is very, it's very pure, innocent, it's very direct, it's you know, it's an interaction that it's you kind of underestimate it at that moment. But every time, because I'm not the person, I'm not social in a way, like, you know, like, hey friends, let's go to a cinema, or hey, let's do something, let me go visit your place, or come over to, I'm really kind of a loner in a certain way, you know. I'm really stuck in my own little bubble. But as soon, and then I start to believe that I'm not really that social, or I'm maybe awkwardly social. And then every time when I meet a lot of colleagues, you know, especially people who I share the same values with, music, you know, we're part of the same thing. And as soon as I have this communication with them, even though it's bullshit according to whatever, you know, but I come home and I feel like it was good, you know, good for my soul to speak with people who share the same world as I do. So and this is something that was, you know, taken away when we stopped DJing. So and I kind of realized during your show, and also like Jochem has another show the day before, the not Twitters. And on Sunday they do a stream and they talk more about like really technical stuff. And it makes me really feel these 2 hours are basically really helping me with, you know, staying connected with people who who share the same ideas as me, or we are part of the same world. And
so you agree we could do this 12 hours, right?
I should say 24 hours. Fuck it.
No, but wait a minute, Ali. When we're talking about this, you know, you just hit the nail on the head, Ali, when you were saying like you tried to like be there for that Thursday. You know, I think the thing is with when we talk about it, since we're talking about it now, when we started this, it's we would be talking like this if people were watching, or if this would be a private Zoom call. There is like literally no difference, you know, and it is really like Ali is saying, you know, it's therapeutic. What is it? Therapeutic. That, you know, we're all going through so many phases during this lockdown period, you know, especially all of our lives have changed 180 degrees completely. You're suddenly home. You haven't left your home in like 5 months. You're just saying like twice, going to the supermarket. This is like, when I just heard that, that's wow. This is like, you should write a book about this, how this feels actually to be within your four walls after having a life like this, you know, being constantly on the road. Literally on the road.
Make a segment to the DJs and Beers show, because it's a big part of being inside for 5 months.
Absolutely, that would be a whole. That would be it would be the whole show in itself. But you know, you were going through phases, and as Ali just said, it's like sometimes on a Monday I would be like so in a weird state somehow. I wouldn't say good or bad, but just like, you know, I'm living alone here. You know, like I think I can say that, Ali. We're both living alone. David is living alone, if I may say that. Like, that's 3 of us who are constantly basically on their own. Matt and Mo has a family. By the way, Mo is with his family today. Hi, Mo. And it is, you know, I can't say that for the others, but for me, it's like you're going through these phases, but you do not want to disappoint the crew, your group of people that you're going to be talking with on Thursday night at 9 by losing it, or by saying like, I'm out of it and I can't deal with it. So you kind of focus on that, and you kind of like get back, and you actually focus again, and you're like focusing, hey, we have this show, we're talking with each other. It's not about the show, but we're talking with each other, and I want to contribute because we're learning from each other. And it still actually amazes me to round that up, that actually on a night like this here at 20 past 11, I'm sitting here in Frankfurt having my beer with someone who's sitting in Long Beach, California having his beer, in Berlin, which is not so far away, and in Washington, D.C., and always like tonight, a super amazing guest. It still puzzles me. This is great. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
I still wonder why people are watching it. Still watching.
I gotta give a shout. I gotta give a shout to Lucian Fort, who's watching. Also, he's also in Rotterdam.
Look at them.
What's up, Lucian?
Yeah, what Ali was saying, you know, it's therapeutic on a deeper level, because you didn't even know that you needed this therapy, because you're focused on get yourself together for your other peers on the show and for the people who watch it, and then later on you will realize that actually it's really been well for your own self as well. And this is how I kind of approach DJing sometimes as well, like when I know like maybe I didn't play the best set I could, or something went wrong, or I didn't feel like I feel frustrated that I didn't get everything out of it. And I started to learn to look at it at a different psychological level, like what else did I get from it, like what other positive. And that's it's interesting.
Yeah. Are you still actively buying new music?
Yes, I am.
You are? Okay.
Well, right now, actually, I'm producing a lot of music, but next to it, I'm following everything. But basically what I've been doing is I buy vinyl still, but mostly what I do is like all the vinyl, I'm basically only buying the vinyl that is not on digital, like all the stuff that's not available on digital, I still buy it. Maybe like for the last 2-3 months, I've been just building up a wish list, because I don't know, what's going to happen. And, I mean, I put it in the wish list, like I'm going to buy it at some point. But right now, like everything that's quite expensive, because I buy a lot of records, I've never been one to buy 3 records, or, like there should be 4 good tracks on a record before I buy it. Like, even if it's like one good record that's only 3 minutes, one good track with 3 minutes, I'll buy it, because that's my instinct, like I need to have all. So I buy a lot of music. So right now, as I know, it's so much money, and as long as we're uncertain, I'm trying to just save things up, but I'm following everything, and it's also helping me, of course, in especially now, keeping up. But it's more, but this culture, I'm part of this culture, and the thing, as you said before, it's all about inspiration. I need to know what's going out there on the music wise and on Twitter to find out what people are thinking, but music wise as well. Like, I need to find out what are the producers doing, what is everyone doing, and you have to keep yourself inspired. But in a more economical way right now, I'm figuring like, well, I want to buy a lot of synthesizers. I'm like, well, maybe let's wait until we know what's going to happen, because we don't know what's going to happen. And I want to ask you guys actually about this. Like, like it's such an uncertain period for all of us. And, and probably in all our respected countries, we're probably the only ones, or part of the only ones, that are not allowed to go, to work. And, we don't know what's going to happen. And the gigs that are maybe offered now, like for you, Chris or Ali, maybe it's the smaller gigs. They won't pay as much as you probably would get normally. So it's not really, probably not necessarily for the money itself. So as this things goes longer, has this already crossed your minds already? Like, what if, have you already thought about other alternatives outside of music? Or have you ever even questioned your own music, your own existence in this music part, where we all feel that what we're doing now is illegal because we're not really considered, workable, or we cannot go out? Have you doubt yourself in this whole 5 months periods? Like, the self-doubt about, what am I? I can do my things. Did it hit you on a deeper level? And did you think about this? Like, what am I, also financial wise, like maybe if funds rise up at some point, have any of you guys already considered like, oh my God, maybe I should do this, or maybe, and how does it work inside your heads? What does it do to you? I was really curious about knowing. It's a lot of questions, sorry, but.
Yeah, it's a big question.
But
I don't think a day goes by where we're not trying to figure out how to weather the storm. Everyone's in a different financial situation. You can't go on forever with no income. That's obvious. and you know, this goes back to kind of what we were talking about, how like, you know, leading up to the show, we're all kind of trying to cope with our daily lives and to mitigate what's happened, and we're falling apart. And then the show helps us, you know, gain new clarity and perspective about how to carry on. I think what we, you know, Chris, you seem to be positive a lot. Like every time I'm feeling down, I talk to you maybe privately and you're like, listen, and I talk to other people and they kind of inject a bit of positivity. Like people outside of my industry offer a very basic perspective on, you know, and things that, you know, I'm already aware of. Like nightlife is not going to go away. At some point, this pandemic is going to be behind us and we're going to get back to doing what we did. Question is when. I think that's what throws everyone off. There's no, you know, if someone were to tell you, okay, on this date, everything's going to go back to normal, then you can kind of, then you can focus, plan, and it's manageable. But what's not manageable, and it's like this for every industry, not just our industry, is the uncertainty. You know, when are kids going to be able to go back to school? Today here, you know, the whole debate here in America has been like kids going back to school, and there's been a lot of issues with that. I read today that movie theaters, just the AMC movie theater chain, just started back up today to open up. I don't know how that's going to work, but life needs to find a way to go on, and we have to try to, you know, we're in unprecedented times. There is no right answer, it seems like, but we have to try, you know. Chris has to do this gig tomorrow because it's creating this solidarity around the scene in Leipzig, and maybe those clubs or whatever this event is helping to fund, maybe they need that. You know, I don't think a lot of people realize that maybe a lot of these clubs that we play at, depending on how long this goes on, may not be there anymore.
Yeah. I'm so worried about
like, what if, I don't know what would happen if Berghain said, okay, you know, the German government, local government have allowed us to do one like 24 hour 3-day party. And we want all of our Berghain residents to play. And you know, they reach out to all those residents. Do you actually think they're going to say no because we're in the midst of a pandemic? If Berghain need that to carry through this difficult situation economically, so we also owe it to the promoters and the clubs to make sure that they're going to be there at the other side of this. And so we're all put in very uncomfortable situations constantly with having to decide whether to do a gig or not.
I feel like
the debate goes on.
Yeah. It's going to be like that until really there's probably a vaccine. And, you know, like, I think we talked a little bit about this last week. It's like there's always going to be these first parties that are happening where everyone's going to be totally against it. But even if you pushed it 3 or 4 months later, there's going to be those parties that are going to happen where people are like, it's too soon, man, no way. Yeah. And then, you know, eventually it'll become more normal, and people are just going to be like, oh, well, yeah, you know, it's fine. Everything is normal now. But another thing I wanted to add is like, as like I don't know, I don't even know where I would put myself on the totem pole of DJs, but like I would say I'm a lower tier DJ compared to Chris and Ali and even Matt and Benny. But it's like I feel like bigger DJs already have their kind of, I guess I would say their future is a bit more set in stone versus someone like me, where once the pandemic is over, am I still going to have a place? Am I still going to have booking requests and gigs where you have a huge following where, yeah, it's for you, it's no problem. You guys were like, I'll be good. I'm fine. But I feel like this like middle class of DJs or whatever you would call it, we might be cut out because we're just like not very important or not that big. You know what I mean? Yeah, I have some fans. I have some promoters that will probably book me, but to get back to a normal tour like how it was before, I don't know. I have a feeling it's just not. It might not be there. That's where I'm a little bit worried about.
So are you already prepared maybe to consider something else, or If this,
yeah.
I don't think so personally, because you're you built something up there, you know, and you're selling yourself way too short right now. But
maybe I am.
That being said, you know, and this is the interesting thing, like from a psychological level, are we all prepared for if things doesn't come back, or it doesn't come back in the way we're used to, that we could live off so easily? Are you guys already you seeing a situation where you're actually doing something else to get by? You know, especially
I'm trying to do that.
You know, that's actually what I'm curious about. Like the thought for me, because I've been thinking about it, even though I've been doing well over the years, you know, and I saved up some money so I can sit it out for a little while. But I'm already thinking about, this is not going to affect us for a year or 2 years. It's going to affect us for many, many years. You know, it's going to, we have to change our lives. You know, maybe we were living on a standard that was because we were earning much more money than we will probably do later on. So we will each one of us will sacrifice something, you know, to get by in the future. So, and if it doesn't really, you know, so and then I was already thinking like, well, I was feeling like panical, because I was thinking just the thought of doing something else than being a DJ, which is what I've been doing since I've been 14. I skipped school, and this is everything I know. And you know, this is everything my identity is kind of like, I put all my identity in being this thing. So, and I really, when you were guys saying we were going all through certain motions, like my deepest downfall at a certain point was like when I really started thinking like, you know, like, oh shit, you know, let's say if this doesn't come back, or I cannot live from this anymore, and I'm thinking in longer, I'm almost 40, you know, and this is all I have. And there was this point where I was feeling like, oh my God, you know, what did I do? Did I do things well? Shouldn't I maybe study more or study another? Or, you know, you start doubting on yourself, you know, because you don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like, oh my, you start doubting on everything, you know, and I went really low there. So I'm really curious about how you guys experience that, or maybe like as Chris is positive, he will say, well, it will come back at some point. Like
it's the uncertainty. That's my problem, is the uncertainty, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I tend to think more negatively than Chris does.
Me too.
I mean, I can say with certainty that we will return to. I mean, music has always been there. It'll always be there. Chris was saying, you know, human beings by nature, we like to gather in social groups. So events, clubs, festivals, whatever, that's going to be there.
But that's exactly what
things will be different. Everything will be different. We're all going to have to make sacrifices. But I'm very optimistic that, the thing that gives me some level of comfort is that I know everyone globally 24/7 are working on a vaccine. So, when we're sleeping, someone somewhere is like hard at work working on a vaccine, or multiple people, governments. Everyone wants a return to normal. And it's just, getting through this period with grace and with sanity, with your sanity intact. There was never a plan B for me. It was always music, and there ain't going to be a plan B now. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. How about you, Matt?
I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I'm concentrating on the label, on building all I can do is make music, which is what I've been doing. I've been making more music than ever, and concentrate on the label, signing new artists, and hope that the economy doesn't collapse so that people can continue to support the music industry, because I mean, the live music industry's gone for the moment, or club industry. So we need to keep it going. I mean, I've always said this on the show that, when I was like 10 or 11 or 12, I didn't know what clubs were, but I was into club music. So, and I think the way people consume dance music is only like, that's 1% of the time that maybe it's actually played ever. I mean, it's people only hear it in the clubs, when the clubs are going, but people listen to club music, in cars, they listen everywhere. So we need to keep it going, that side of things. And it annoys me when people say, I'm only going to make ambient drones, or I'm only going to do this, because, I love dance music. So that's what I'm going to do.
But you're coming from a positive point of view.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you have to believe.
And he makes fucking amazing dance music.
But even though I said what I said, I still have the same mentality where it's like I'm still gonna make club music even if there's no clubs to be played in. Like I'm just like at this point, I was like, this is what I do, this is what I know how to do, and I'm just gonna keep doing it. Like, why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
People are still they're gonna consume it somehow, either way, be it on Spotify or on a stream or something. So I'll just keep doing it. But unfortunately, you can't make a living off music right now anyway. So
no.
Yeah, just keep going. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the whole concept of being unemployed was completely new to me. I've never had that in my whole life, you know, that you didn't have and in a sense, making money to support yourself in life, you know, and others that you care for. And I never thought, I somehow didn't think there could be a pandemic that kind of closes the whole dance music industry, you know, that you're working in. And now I start to understand how hard it is actually for people who are not allowed to work, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you're not allowed to work. I've never really had that in my life before. And that is a whole different understanding. Yet work, you know, to make a living, because I mean, we're all working like crazy, but we're loving what we're doing. We're making music all the time. If you want to consider that work, I mean, let's define work as the process of doing something, you know, and you're getting some sort of like money in return to make a living, and that is kind of like a weird thing. But otherwise, you know, as Ali says, it will go on at some point. We just need to kind of like, I think, pull through this together somehow, you know, and as individual person try to like get rid of everything excess in your life right now that you've maybe carried with you that you don't really need, that's just holding you back, you know, a lot of material things as well. Let's just get rid of them and move forward into like a lighter future, because David is kind of right. It's not going to jumpstart as it was, you know. It's going to be slowly, like, and he analyzed, I think, David, I think you just hit it on the nail when you said, like, you know, it's going to be some parties, people going to complain about it. I didn't really see it that way, but it's already happening, what you're saying. It's like people complain about it, you know, and then there's going to be some more parties, and then you get used to the complaining because there's going to be more parties, too many parties to complain about, and then it's like, oh, I guess we're back in business. And maybe at the same time, there's someone saying like, hey, I found the vaccine, you know. But even if there's a vaccine, it's not going to change things from one day to the other. It's going to take another year to have everyone vaccinated. So there's, you know, in return, there's so many different aspects that are going on right now that ultimately I kind of feel like, you know, let's just wait, see what's going on, not worry too much. And you all guys saying like I'm very positive about it. I'm actually not. I'm trying not to be negative about it. I'm just trying to be like, okay, let's just see what happens. You know, because I don't want to be too super positive about things too. Yeah. I want to be realistic about it. But it doesn't need to be bad, you know. It doesn't need to be bad to strip down of material things at some point, to a point, of course, where you still have a living, a roof over your head, enough to eat, you know, in a very extreme case, you know. But up till that point, I think ultimately this can be done.
Yeah, and also like you think about, you know, it's the uncertainty of the thing where things just start getting better and then something happens and the shit hits the fan and it just goes, it's going to be this up and down, and it's also being up and down mentally. You're just like, fuck, okay, things are starting to get okay. Maybe things are going to open, and then you start getting a little bit excited and optimistic, and then all of a sudden, maybe because I live in the US, I mean, it seems like it's been like that here, you know. It's like things are starting to get somewhat better, and then fuck, we fucked it up. And then it's okay, everything's all right. Then we fucked it up again, you know. So it's hard to deal with mentally sometimes.
Well, Kenny, Benny, why do I keep saying Kenny? Benny, thank you so much.
Kenny's dead. Kenny's dead.
We didn't really talk too much about your, you know, you're getting into electronic music and people like Steve Rockbot and others who I think I saw you said on Twitter that he was like a mentor. I don't know how influential he was in your
huge influence, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll probably need 2 more hours.
Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us on the show. Thanks for supporting and watching, and keep making the amazing songs.
Well, right back to you guys. It's really nice to, as I said before, you know, it was an honor to be on the show, and also, you know, musical wise, you know, I respect all of you, and you know, it's good to be connected in a musical way, but even more in a social way. And you know, it's especially with the previous topic, you know, like you just go on and you go on, and I guess this show is one way of, you know, trying to you know, you go on, and this is a sort of a, you know, unconsciously this show is kind of a thing where you just keep, you know, you just have this positive moment of vibration of socialization with each other, and it gives you kind of energy to go on for the next few days, and before you know it, there's the next week, you know, and you do a new show. And so it's a way of keeping busy, you know, and trying to keep your spirits in a good positive way, I guess. So yeah, keep going on, guys. It's a great show. Thanks for having me.
Well, we could go on for another 9 hours and 20 minutes, and then we have our 12-hour show.
I have the chairs. I'm good.
He's good.
Yeah, you have the chair, and I do think out there with our amazing audience that are with us still, it gains traction. That idea, I do believe.
Oh, really?
We'd have to prep.
What else do we have to do?
Prepare for that 9-hour DJs and Beer. Actually, for me, it wouldn't be so bad because it's noon, and 9 hours would mean like I would be going to bed by that time. So it's totally fine.
No, 12 hours.
Oh, okay, it's still not terrible, but like for Matt and you, Chris, maybe Ali too. But I think Ali goes to sleep late anyway.
But you could mix it up like an estafette, you know, like it's you and Ali, and then it's David and Matt and Mo comes in, and you kind of, you know, the DJ marathon.
People go to sleep when they're tired. We just randomly call people, put them on the show.
I know Ali would keep for at least 25 hours if I see his setting remain.
No, 26 and a half hours.
26 and a half. Sorry, Ali.
Some waves edition.
Sometimes you got to flex your muscles, you know, your DJ muscles. So, you know.
I'm all up for it, man. DJs and Beer Marathon. You guys should make it happen. Definitely.
Man, thank you, Benny.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Benny.
All the best.
Man.
Been a big pleasure. Thank you, Benny.
Good to see everyone.
Cheers, guys. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Night.
Ciao, ciao.
Cool.